When I moved to Myntra on just a whim, कुछ तो हो रहा है स्टार्टअप वर्ल्ड में, बैंगलोर चलते हैं. I remember I came back and told them, boss, सैलरी कट लेने को भी नहीं बोल रहे हैं, ऊपर से ESOP टाइप की कोई चीज है वो दे रहे हैं.
You assume a lot of things that are unsaid are understood. They're not. 4 साल पहले तक 100 करोड़ was like a big deal. Moment we hit 100 करोड़, people are like, 100 करोड़ तो बहुत.
अभी 1000 करोड़ वाले को बोल रहे हैं यार बेकार. सिर्फ 50 करोड़ EBITDA किया. Whatever you do, just do it here in India, no matter what role you play.
Yeah.
This is the inevitable time for India. Like many of us, I have never truly faced failure in the same way that happens to you when you're a founder. Before that, if you ask me, what was the worst day I remember in my life, it was probably the day JEE results came out. 2641 rank आई है. Life तो खत्म है. My family just lost it when I told them that I'm starting up. My mom was stunned. मतलब you've done all the hard work. तेरा नौकरी था श्लम्बरजे में, IIT में, तू वहाँ नहीं गया, फिर तू IIM अहमदाबाद चला गया, वहाँ से तू McKinsey, तू नहीं बताया कि अच्छी कंपनी है, they तो didn't know how to spell it also, and then तू Myntra, whatever, vice president of strategy. I was a little bit embarrassed on how much I was earning. मतलब साल की सैलरी उनकी वेल्थ के बराबर टाइप्स होने की सिचुएशन थी.
Welcome to this incredibly exciting episode of the BarberShop. I have with me one of my closest friends, mentors, someone who I look up to on matters both professional and personal, but someone who has not only inspired me but also like a whole host of entrepreneurs and founders who seek his advice, mentorship and counsel. He was my colleague, and actually when we were colleagues, we didn't interact much because we didn't work together much, but we got much closer afterwards when our entrepreneurial journey started. So welcoming Rahul Chaudhary into the BarberShop. Rahul, welcome. And thank you so much for taking out this 3-hour window in the middle of a packed day in your new stint.
Thank you so much, man. As always, you've been super generous with your words, and I think the inspiration has flown the other way. I will always rue not working together on the venture or at McKinsey, but I'm glad we get to do something together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But tell me about this new stint. Typically, when conversations happen here, they start chronologically from the beginning. And I was trying to figure out whether to start with your NDA days or whether to start with Myntra or McKinsey or Ahmedabad or Treebo. I'm like, okay, cool. I think you have just kind of announced your next stint. So I was thinking anti-chronology would be a great way to start, and I don't know whether we'll stick to it at all, but talk a little bit about being a partner at Matrix. Is one of the most storied funds in India and outside. Also one of your earliest investors. But and congratulations, by the way. It's amazing to see you, and especially on our founder group, when everyone was elated to see a founder operator kind of becoming an investor. I could see a lot of relief/excitement about it, not only because people knew you, but because of what it represented for the Indian ecosystem. So talk about that transition.
Thank you so much. This is my second week as a newly minted VC. I think what you said is the heart of what the thought process was, right? I think there aren't still as many operators and founders who've gone on to the other side and helped founders build their companies. We have a lot of great VCs in the country, but a lot of them have had to work hard and get, broad boardroom exposure. Some of them are operators, but truly, particularly I think in the vintage 2012 to 2022, when a lot of the action in the country happened, I don't think enough founders have yet completed the cycle and gone back. So in some sense, maybe I'm one of the early ones taking that bet. So I'm both nervous and excited. But the thought process is very simple. I was part of building a company that's still to get, I would say, it's due in the big scheme of things. But I've learned a few things along the way, particularly what not to do. And I think that can be valuable. I tried that as the pandemic hit and the travel business just went out of business, I had some time, and so I started spending time with early stage founders, helping them answer the questions that they had. Some of them were around fundraising. Mostly it would be about how should they scale themselves as their company scales, how to manage the board, how to hire the next set of leadership and so on. And while I'd always thought I wouldn't like this playing this coach, right? I'm always the guy who wants the ball when there are 5 seconds to go and I'll take the shot myself. But I think I grudgingly have to admit that I started enjoying that role. Wow. It's a very different role from being a founder, right? It's, as a founder, you're deep. You're solving the same problem 1% better. Here, there is tons of context switching. So you are embedding yourself in many journeys in a tiny sort of way.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'll enjoy that. But as I spent time on, 5 or 6 different situations, across different sectors, I started enjoying. And the fact that these were fantastic founders I would have hung out with anyway, just made it easier. So I thought, why not take it, to the next natural point and become an investor myself. Somebody who has the institutional backing, but also can bring something personally, which I as a founder or you as a founder might have lacked in the early years.
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And institutionally also, I think Matrix is a fantastic, it's just a great place, right? Great people. And I think amongst the venture capitalists in India are always ahead of the curve in terms of experimenting. So they'll try to do like they are very, at least from outside, and I don't know very well, maybe they have been investors with you and now you're a part of that team. But outside, and I always really admired the way they would have very fluid check sizes. They didn't really have very strong industry thesis. They were very happy to come out and say, hey, we were wrong on this, or we want to change some of these things. For example, Vikram and Devyanshi came to my office maybe 4 to 5 months back. Around the time BarberShop was starting up, maybe 1 or 2 episodes in. And they said, we're starting this whole thing around, we recognize that a lot of founders are now doing a lot of angel checks. And we want to organize that, and we want Matrix to be a part of it. And here is the whole structure. And I could see that there was like a tremendous amount of intellectual rigor that had gone into structuring how Matrix can participate and all of that. So I think not only is it you, but also the choice of the fund.
Yeah. It was a good natural fit. Like you said, I've known the fund for about 8-9 years, but I've known the people for far longer, right? Either crossing paths at McKinsey or otherwise. I think it's true that the fund is fluid in terms of they believe that thoughts are it's strong points of view, but they're loosely held. And because the level of unknowns when you're venturing out in something new is so much that you have to only loosely hold those thoughts. And people who are building in these places will actually educate us. So that's at the heart of what the core belief is. But I think over time, they have understood what they are really good at. And I love that. As a founder, it's all about when we're building something, we're trying to find what's repeatable. Sure, you'll make exceptions, but what's really repeatable? I think there is tremendous clarity on that front. So I really kind of resonated on that front, right? For example, one of our beliefs is that a lot of repeat founders and experienced operators will come out and start companies. And this is not an era where you need to necessarily back somebody just out of college who's trying to build the next Facebook. While you may also do that, the repeatable model may be something else. And I like that. And it all ties in. An experienced founder who's building in domain probably wants experienced operators on the other side. So kind of the playbook fits together. And I really like that. But at the end of the day, I think investing, I'm like 9th day into it, right? So I can't say this with
but you're doing it personally as well, right? So you've been investing for a while. Now you're kind of...
True. And we should touch upon, how angel is different from institutional. At least for me, it was. At least at the institutional level, I think it's about making exceptions after you've written down the personal rule book. So it's still the art of making exceptions.
Okay.
But you should know what rule you're flouting. Right?
Give me an example.
For example, let's say I believe that, in fintech, people who've built in financial services either in new age or on old age, will have an edge because, let's say, regulatory, management is a big part of doing that, right? It's a complex business. People need to understand there are multiple, facets to the business, and somebody who's built for a decade in that or operated it there is better placed. So that's your playbook. But along comes a team who doesn't fit your archetype, but is doing something interesting.
Correct.
They're not from the domain, but their traction speaks otherwise. You have to be able to know that this is a role you're okay flouting if you see X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
At the same time, you can't make that archetype or that situation your playbook. So it is, honestly, investing I think is a tough business. The feedback loops are, at least on outcomes, are long. The input loops are, by the way, short. So frankly, the moment you've made the investment, I think your feeling will tell you, I think, whether you feel good about that or not. But the outcome loops are very long.
Correct.
Company creation takes a long time. Company will go up, it'll go down, likely it'll go sideways for some time. And even great founders in tough markets will take time to come. Right? So you have to be patient. And that is just hard, right? That's why playing coach is hard. You can't be there. So this was my biggest reservation actually for a long period of time in becoming an investor, saying it's going to be too passive. I'm just not going to be able to do enough. But once you realize that you're not in the business that your founders are in, your business and your founder's business are different.
Correct.
We're in the business of backing the best, building hopefully in great markets, right? Once you separate and get a sense of zen, I think it becomes somewhat easier. I'm saying, again, I'm caveating this, I have 10 days of experience in this space. So don't let my conviction, falsely show up in how confidently I'm saying this.
No, but we have, we have friends in the VC world. You have, they sit on your boards. You have obviously spent a lot of time very much at, with ring seats to how VCs operate. It's a damn hard business, man. It's easy for founders. And I was talking to Dhaval the other day, and Dhaval and I I've shared our conversations with you. Dhaval and I get into ki VCs just don't get it, and this, and इसने ये सवाल पूछा, उसने वो पूछा, उसको idea है. And I start thinking कि boss, I don't know anything about my own category, my own business. This every day I'm learning. If I have to appear in 10 different board situations with 10 different extremely smart founders and have this high bar on intellectual value add, then तो मैं मर जाऊँगा यार.
Absolutely.
It is so hard to do.
तुम कोई आदमी इतना तेज हो ही नहीं सकता that you will embed yourself in, I don't know, something from neobank to insurance to lending, and this is just in one space, and then do upskilling and so on, and in other sectors. It's just not possible, and therefore actually I think this profession will change, and it's changing. I think founders will value depth a lot more, particularly the experienced one. You have no time to listen to, cliches in your boardroom. Like, yaar, ye pata hai, mat batao. And therefore, depth will become increasingly important. Will that depth be at the same level that you will be at or your team will be at? No. That we have to live with.
Correct.
But I think increasingly you'll see people saying, this person understands SaaS. Right now, you can count on the fingers of one hand, probably, investors who really get it, who've really built in the space.
Correct.
But I think that will change rapidly over the next decade.
Correct.
Look at just the new recruits in the VC space. How many senior product managers, founders office folks, ex-founders will find themselves there. It's no more the only MBB archetype.
Correct.
Or banking and so on that we were used to when 2009, 2010 VC was taking off.
Correct. No, I completely agree. And now I look at consultants, and now I don't know whether it's a function of maturity or life stage. I'm a big fan of McKinsey. I genuinely am very. I owe it to them in a huge way. But now when I sit in rooms with consultants, I can very clearly see sometimes the unnecessary urge, but instinctive one, to be the smartest person in the room. And it's a very difficult bar to meet. especially because clients are becoming smarter. You're now serving founders, you're serving younger age companies. Talent pools are kind of common. Like we all go to the same schools and same, places to recruit.
Yeah.
So now that bar is an unrealistic one, and then that translates to the VC world, because again suddenly you will have an intervention once every few months or every month, and then you want to, for some bizarre, conditioning over years, want to say things that are smart or put in a value add.
Yeah.
And then that kind of really, I think that breaks the flow of the objective of venture capital, which is to back the best founders and, kind of show them the mirror all the time.
Yeah, but if you continue down the same thought, do you think there is any value that an investor can add? Or is it just about literally backing the best and stepping off?
No, I genuinely think investors can add a lot of value. I think founders a lot of times, at least let me speak personally, and from maybe limited experiences I've had, I think founders have the ostrich in the hole syndrome a lot, right? You start drinking your own Kool-Aid. If you're doing very well, you need to be brought back to earth, because things are never as good or as bad as they seem, right? So someone has to show you the mirror. And if you're, a founder is typically extremely deep, as you call it. So I've seen good investors like kind of just pull you out and ask you the right questions. Like for example, I'll just give an example of last week. Ravi Nigam, you have met, right?
Yeah.
So Ravi and Arihant Patni were in our office, and they spent 3-4 hours with the leadership team saying, guys, profitability is a critical question for Bombay Shaving Company. We have to be IPO ready. I don't think that you guys have yet the muscle to do EBITDA bridging. So I said, I agree with you, because I have no idea what EBITDA bridging means. Yeah. He's like, no, we are at minus 22% and we need to get to 0. Okay. This is a line by line cost optimization that McKinsey would do, but now you have to do it. And these are costs that are tough to cut.
Yeah.
And also, there are costs you should not cut because they will have long-term damage for you.
Yeah.
We don't think that you guys can do it on your own. So can we spend a few hours with you? So Ravi said that. Now Ravi is a guy who bought Tasty Bite from Hindustan Unilever, which was a public company which Hindustan Unilever had bought. Was going to die. So he bought it out from them, became the CEO with a few partners, built it out to over 20 years to like 1,500 crore business, then sold it to Kogome in Japan, and then sold it to Mars in the US. So the whole gamut, right? Employee at Levers, buys it out, forced entrepreneurship, 20 years as an operator. And I think for 2 years, he was the highest total return to shareholders CEO in the Bombay Stock Exchange for 2 consecutive years.
Wow.
Yeah, they're brilliant, like a very, very, now it's almost 60, 62. He does a lot of angel investing. But he came and our team had to present and we went into the model. Yeah. And the first time I saw like a senior investor, he sits on the board of Indigo Paints and Paperboat and some of these much larger companies. But I could see him kind of break it open. And at the end, like, he also took some time out to go see the products, love the packaging, spend time with the team. Very personable person. He knows me since I was 10 years old. But that was amazing. It was one day, man. But that set the tone for us. We would never have been able to achieve the same objectives.
See, that's what I'm talking about, right? So, in a way, the operator will do very different things. He or she will do things certainly very differently.
Correct.
Right? For somebody to come and talk to you about just really nuts and bolts of your own business, operators will find that easier. In fact, if at all, they'll be drawn in a bit too much.
Yeah.
That is why I'm saying, the profile will change over time. Founders like you will demand more than just capital over time. In fact, what you do through Razor's Edge is partly that. Capital to kahin se bhi la sakta hai.
Correct.
What you're bringing is the collective energy, the collective might of the multiple operators and the founders who are saying ki, chalo, we'll help this company.
Correct.
Therein though lies a risk. The best founders don't like to be told.
Yeah.
Look, you never learn when you're being taught a lesson, right?
That is,
and that's a hard one to do. For example, I find checking myself. I'm talking to an experienced founder, I'll say something as an assertion, whereas it's a hypothesis at best. Frankly, it should have been a question.
Correct.
So the journey from expressing something as an assertion to hypothesis to question is a hard one to do.
Correct.
Because you're not used to asking open questions. At least I am not. I haven't matured maybe as much through my founder journey, and I've only started doing it late into the journey where I've started asking questions to the leadership team. Half the time you'll end up expressing a point of view, hoping to be pushed back.
Correct.
Because your early training has been just obligation to dissent, bolo, debate hoga, aega. But in the boardroom, you probably won't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
You want to ask a question, leave it. Leave the founder to marinate.
Yeah.
She may get it next day, next week, or possibly the next year. Frankly, you don't have too much control over that.
Yeah.
The operator issue from the other side might come from pushing too much.
Yeah.
And not too little. So I think, I'm coming back, investing is going to be hard.
It's very hard.
Right.
Also, what I loved about that meeting, now that I think about it and listening to what you're saying, is at no point in those 3-4 hours did I feel like he was trying to look intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was not required. Like, he's above it. He's proven, been there, done that. So everything he was saying was purely with the unadulterated objective of ensuring that we progress on the answer that is best for the company, with a very clear objective कि EBITDA bridge करना है, अब क्या करें. And at that point also, I remember he told me one thing. I think the team there are moments where the team kind of just steps back and says, okay, you can see the silence kind of fall on people nicely. He said, I think he was showing some Excel sheet. And he said, do not risk being mathematically correct and conceptually wrong. And we're like, yeah, that is absolutely true. He's like, you will cut this cost and it'll fuck you 4 months later. And there is no way you can reverse it. So while yes, it achieves your objective of 3% or whatever it is for this bucket, please do not do it, because I don't think you can foresee what's going to happen. And there were at least 20 moments like this, and we were like, wow, man.
Yeah.
It just comes from just an amazing, one is, I think, intent to help. As an investor, genuine intent to help the company, see them successful, is amazing. Right now, for example, we are getting into a fundraise. We want to time the raise well, right? We've gotten a banker. We share bankers. And we said, guys, we need to give you the best shot of success, which means we launch the raise when we feel the market is hot. We don't do it now. For that, we need to buy time. Time equals money. Ravi said, hey, you know what? If capital buys you time, I will raise it for you. I'm going to put in my own check. And I said, this is not an angel check, Ravi. Now, this is a low risk, low return situation. We have the 0 to 2,000 crore valuation journey was a 20, 30, 40x journey. Now it's going to be a 3-4x journey. So I don't think the asset class makes sense for an individual check. He said, no, this is not an asset class question at all. This is an intent to help the company which we backed. So good money behind good money. Doesn't matter what the multiplier is. And I was like, wow, man. So intent to help, put money where the mouth is, and then just push the team and stays it. Like now the emails are coming in. Hey, we spoke about these 5 things. The minutes missed it. What's happening on this? Not again to test but just to make sure that we are.
I think it comes from many things actually. Some of which you've said, right? It comes from indeed intent to help. That's the basis of that person being there. It's not to salvage.
But tell me one thing. How much? Let me ask you this: How many VCs do you think in India have genuine intent to help? How many of them will put the company over fund? Because we hear this a lot, right? The character of an investor comes when the company is not in the best of places. Or is it an unreasonable expectation?
I'm not even sure that's the right expectation from that person. That person is a professional manager of somebody else's money.
Funds, correct.
It's important for that person to always have that objective in mind. The way they do that is by backing great founders.
Correct.
So most of the time, hopefully, we are all aligned. But sometimes there will be a divergence in what the founder wants to do and what's right for the fund. For example, let's say you wanted to go now at a certain, you've taken money from a venture capital firm that's expecting a certain return on its fund, which has a certain life of 10 years and so on, and needs to return the fund.
Correct.
India has been notorious for not returning money back. Multiple सारे हैं, marked up है, लेकिन पैसा वापस कहाँ गया है?
Correct.
अब शुरू हो रहा है.
Correct.
उसको लौटाना है. You want to grow at a certain reasonable pace. You want to cut risk. In the extreme case, you want to take it actually to a you want to buy back and you want to take the company into a different direction. In M&A situations, this will also show up.
Correct.
I think there will be divergence. We founders and investors have to prepare for our paths diverging at some point in time.
Correct.
That's the what. The how can still be very different from what the investors have done.
Correct.
Do I need to be just like, transactional and ruthless about it after 7-8 years of, building in the trenches together? I don't think so. I think you're a very, for most mature founders, if the investors sat across the table and said, देख यार, इस fund से invest किया था, ये life है. Here is what I can do. Here's what I've done. But that's at the end of how much I can support you with capital. But as a person, here I am, and that'll never change.
Yeah.
VC funds that actually sell stock in IPOs or in pre-IPO continue to have fantastic relationship with the founder CEOs and the next level of team.
Yeah.
So many times they back actually teams coming out of the same company. Like I used to say in Treebo, right? My relationship with you has to go beyond our employment contract.
Correct.
And I'll probably say the same thing as an investor. I think my relationship with you goes beyond the SHA we've signed. Here's what the institution will be able to back me. But as a person, my intent to help is always there. By the way, I've always felt that the intent to help is there. Occam's razor, right? So whatever you can attribute to stupidity, don't attribute to malice.
Correct.
Right? Maybe the young investor doesn't know better on how to ask that question or how to navigate that situation. I've had places, situation where the journey with the investor started in a very rough manner. Like, our upfront negotiation wasn't pleasing. At some point, I'm like, I don't want to be in business with this guy. But then you have to put, some context onto it. That's that person's first deal, let's say.
Yeah.
They are also trying to make a name for themselves.
Correct.
Once you have that view, some of my best friends, actually it started, in the investing world, journey with them would have started very differently.
Correct.
So, going back to what Ravi did well, right? I think many things, right? It's not easy to, there's a reason why you're speaking about him in just glowing language. There's intent to help, which several people have.
Yeah.
I think what's missing often is a through cycle view. क्या हो जाएगा ज़्यादा छटपट आगे? Right? What will you do?
Correct.
You've got to do this patiently, over a sustained period of time. Company creation is messy.
I agree.
So you've got to be in there. It also comes from security, which you alluded to earlier. You don't need to necessarily look smart. You have security.
Correct.
Look, honestly, I was in that, I need to leave the room knowing I'm the smartest guy in that room, but that's not enough. Everyone here must know that I was the smartest guy in the room. I was naive. As a consultant, I was.
Yeah.
Right? I was like 28-year-old engagement manager, talking, name dropping, saying, I was sitting with that CXO and that CEO, right? Uh-huh. I look both bigger than, who I am, smarter than I am, and so on. As a founder, actually, it's incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
Once you've told the team, you've convinced them, you're a great orator, you'll end up convincing a lot of people. Then you go out and take that bet into the market and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You come back ashen-faced and you come back and face the same team. Ab kahan hai? Haan, kya hua? Right? Yeah. First time you face some of those failures, it humbles you. Over time, you get security in your own abilities, saying a lot of this is going to be randomness. Let's just separate quality of inputs from, how good the decisions were.
Yeah.
Once you are secure, you are able to help people a lot more. नहीं तो अभी मैं देख रहा हूँ यार ये कैसे जा रहा है बाहर, how am I being perceived, etc. etc. Ravi doesn't need that, or people like him don't need that.
Yeah.
And I think that is why people with great intent to help, a through cycle view, and security are the great coaches, great advisors, great sounding boards that founders will look for, or at least that's my bet.
Also, I feel the venture capital industry in India is now reaching maturity as an industry. Yes. It's a young industry.
Absolutely.
So for people to have through cycle view in investing itself,
totally
has taken time, right? So Avnish, for example, or Abhay at A90, or some of these guys have been and there and done that, but it's just been 15-18 years.
Absolutely.
So it I think now the industry is reaching a place where they've seen a few cycles, they've seen founders, that the pattern recognition is really falling into place.
And you've seen ki I was feeling great about this, that really didn't go much anywhere. Yeah. I had this bias, but this really scaled. You've seen an anti-portfolio, you've seen great situations and absolutely crappy ones in your portfolio. And if you're intellectually honest, and you've been around for 15 years, which is roughly the age of probably this industry in India, right? Really from the first $1 million check in Flipkart to now, you have absorbed some of those learning. Add that to what's happening in India, where it's going to go nuts. Yeah. It's going to go nuts, right?
Correct.
In the next 15 years.
Correct.
I don't know, it'll be 10, 12, 15, 17. But India is inevitable.
Correct.
You compare a somewhat maturing industry to true digital build out.
Yeah.
I think we are in for a ride of our lifetime.
I agree. The quality of founders, for example, some of the people we work with together, it blows my mind, yaar. But we'll come to founders separately. But I think one of the things which with investing, which I am kind of learning, and you're right, the thing is, feedback loops in most jobs, even as a founder, for example, feedback loops are very short. I don't think they go beyond 1 year. Like I will learn in a year the consequences of my decisions, or whether it's talent, whether it's go to market, whether it's launch of a product, whether it's a strategic call, whatever it is. Within a year, the feedback loop is kind of complete and closed. So I've learned and I've moved on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure human beings have the ability to absorb 7, 8 year, 9 year feedback loops. And that too extremely divergent ones, different kinds. There are loops around, this founder was great when I met her, backed, but then these 3 things happened and it didn't work out. Or this founder was not great, but we still kind of took a small bet, and these 3 triggers happened which kind of catapulted the founder into a different orbit. Or this founder had this talent acquisition approach which looked great on paper, but they always had a very massive churn in the senior team, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Those loops are very long.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether, even if the venture capital industry is now maturing, how many of the funds or fund managers or partners have taken the time to step back and really kind of historically put down some of these learnings. I think that might be an exercise that is worthwhile.
I think the great ones do that. In fact, that's the only way really to learn in this business. So, without going into too much details, I'm already been part of a discussion where we are saying, okay, this company is looking really good. But would you have invested, if knowing everything and having sharpened your playbook, would you have invested at seed? Give me the honest answer.
Okay.
Don't take into account anything that has happened since, because you don't know that. It's a thought experiment, which is hard to do.
Correct.
But if you're honest about it, and you go back to what signals you were seeing in the company, if you answer that, your playbook sharpens. It often happens even more on misses. It's obvious. I passed this person on this person twice or thrice, and that person has gone on to build a reasonably large franchise because of some bias you had. ऐसे नहीं बोलता, background वैसा है, right? And so on. He's flouted your playbook.
Yeah.
That is a real signal for you to incorporate.
But does it get incorporated, you think? In the good places?
I think the great people do. I certainly, I'm very young in this profession, but I think the best ones do that. Combination of being reflective, intellectually honest, and to some extent being data driven, right, about this. So you need a process, but you need more than that, a willingness to face these learnings about yourself, because it's saying something about your own cognitive biases.
Correct.
And that's often hard to take, but the best ones will do that. I want to make another point actually. I've heard, and I'm yet to experience this, that while feedback loops on outcomes may seem very long, actually the micro loops are here and now. You have it in front of you.
Yeah.
And somebody, at Matrix was saying, like in a poker game, you don't need to know your winnings or your losses at the end of the day to know how you've played.
Yeah.
You literally know it every hand.
Yeah.
You might even know it every bet.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention, that is. So that's why focus on inputs, focus on, are you following the right process, is extremely important. you felt there were certain risks that you were ignoring or willing to make exceptions on in terms of when backing somebody. And in the next 1 or 2 years, you see some of those risks playing out. Like for example, you said, this person's really going to be good at scale because bada business बनाया है, but 0 to 1 में iterate करने में थोड़ा सा struggle करेगा.
Correct.
You will see it because the shipping velocity won't be there. The stomach for operational intensity in early days won't be there. So if you're paying attention, my sense is you might pick up those loops along the way. Again, all of this is hearsay. I have no idea what I'm talking about. We'll find out.
No, but I mean, that's the thing, right? I think it brings me to the to business building. It is a very complicated thing, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I severely underestimated. I theoretically knew it's hard to build a company. I had read the books, I'd seen my dad do it. So I knew that this is hard, but I had such bizarre confidence, which was rooted in nothing, कि मैं कर पाऊंगा. And I was proven wrong on so many levels that there were so many decisions that I would have taken differently. So many things I would have kind of given more importance, given less importance. I was very dismissive of challenges.
What kind? Like, say more.
Multiple things, like very tactically. I was very dismissive of the market size challenge. I genuinely believe that if I make a great product, that people will pay for it. People will pay what I think I deserve for it, as opposed to
and they'll shape the market. They'll create the market.
They'll create the market. Boss, we are building the best razor in the world. It is unimaginable that you won't buy it. Like, it's an insult to your intelligence if you don't come to the shop and buy my razor. And I was very confident. I was like, there is no need for targets, guys. There's no need for targets. Just make sure we have enough supply. That was what I genuinely thought getting out of the gates. It was humbling and in multiple ways, right? And then you kind of realize, fuck, the world doesn't really revolve around you. And then, of course, these are very tactical challenges. You learn very quickly from them. Yeah. But there are other challenges around talent, like the skills you index on basis your baggage as in my case, our case, as a consultant, versus what are skills that are actually relevant in the startup world. There are people who have surprised you the other way. Where
several, many of them.
I've just kind of, there are people in our company who I had written off saying, hey, this person's not going to work, or they will reach a ceiling and leave, but has just kind of, there have been multiple slingshots. Financially, like I always felt that value creation for me will be amazing and great, and I underestimated the challenges of a low salary for a while, for example. Not just financially, but also at an ego level, when it comes to being able to afford certain things, or being supported by someone. I had intellectually accepted that this might be the case, but while living through it, it was a very different journey. So I think it's a damn hard thing to do, man. Like, businesses are messy. Bombay Shaving Company has had its, ups and downs. It's not been an easy ride by any this thing. But I now know what you say. Ki if I were to go back and do it again, I'll be a million times more better prepared, and probably a lot more humble about the fact. I think awareness about the fact that it's damn hard is a big first step.
Yeah, I hope that's also one trait founders, operators will bring to the investing world. That sense that this shit is hard. Sometimes it doesn't work for no good reason.
Yeah.
In fact, internally, I as I was thinking about being an investor, I felt like, great investors, they're going to have, I've spoken about it before with you, they'll have Ken. They'll have knowledge, they'll have network, but they'll also have empathy.
Correct.
And knowledge and network are additive in some way. You don't have one, you'll compensate with the other, but hopefully you have a little bit of both to be able to help. But the real multiplicative factor is empathy. Because you've gone through that humbling journey yourself, you are more easily able to put yourself in the shoes of the founder, be less judgmental, and say, yaar, hoga, I understand what you're going through. I think a lot of the times, young investors, particularly, who are new in the industry, they miss that. Because think of it, they're in a fiercely capitalistic profession. There are resource allocator, there are capital allocator. ये चल रहा है, ये नहीं चल रहा है. यहाँ से बाहर निकलते हैं, यहाँ में और डालते हैं. It's monopoly money.
Yeah.
You could feel like that. The Delhi city card you've bought is not a card.
Yeah.
It's an individual. It's a founding team.
Yeah.
It's an organization behind that.
Yeah.
Several lives are linked to that. I think people who felt the pain, and all operators who've lived, long enough,
Correct.
have had to, let go of people,
Yeah.
shut down things that haven't worked, face personal failures, insecurities, co-founder conflicts, and so on,
Yeah.
to know that this stuff is hard. I think that multiplicative, effect of empathy will also be huge.
I agree. I completely agree. Brings me back to Ravi. Actually, it's amazing how much is kind of going back to him. But I think also the recency effect of this conversation that we had, like this workshop that we had with him. But we've had 2 board meetings. I think the market is a tricky market right now. Everyone's focusing on profitability, and we're saying, hey, I started the meeting with him by saying, hey, we're giving the company X crores of money, and we are setting this bar on the company. We will not break this X barrier come what may. Receivables are critical, gross margin is critical, marketing ratios are critical, this blah blah, all of this. So he knew that we were being aggressive and ambitious, and which was great. I think that's what they wanted to see. But he took a step back and said, have you guys thought about how companies in the consumer world have been built? Like they require capital, and needing capital is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a ROCE mindset to things, and a long-term ROCE mindset to things? Then he told us, we took X crore of rupees to build out this, and it was okay as long as we were being aggressively frugal. But being aggressively frugal is important. Don't shut the taps, because you will start becoming thirsty. Don't shut the taps. It's very tempting. So don't do it. And think about it. You have spent X crores. You have built a company which is now grossing 300 crores. Your value is this much. Your ROCE is X. If it's going to take another 50 crores, let's raise it. If it's going to take another 200 crores, let's raise it, but let's allocate it the right way. Do not shut the taps on and create profitability, because it will not be sustainable. Take a long-term view to value creation. And I'm like, boss, it was so important to hear that in the moment. And it is just so much judgment and perspective, man. Like, so in the Ken framework, there is obvious empathy, because I'm assuming that like Tasty Bite or he's seen other companies go through it. But the knowledge to kind of, and to build that perspective and kind of take all of us to that understanding was also kind of.
I also think that's going to be the profile. If you ask me, I think the network is increasingly commoditized in a certain set. You know everyone, I know everyone, we'll call. Frankly, the bar on network will be much higher. It doesn't matter, who you know.
Correct.
It's actually more important to know whose speed dial are you on.
Correct.
That's network.
Correct.
So there is a high bar there. But I really think the profile of investors who will be company builders alongside the founders will be folks who will genuinely have proprietary knowledge.
Correct.
On something, either functionally but likely more in a certain domain.
Correct.
Coupled with certain empathy and through cycle view on how things will take certain amount of time. It'll take 50 to 200 crores more.
Correct.
Just knowing that, having the patience, but knowing what's the right place to do.
Correct.
That could very well be the recipe for the great investors of the next decade or two.
Correct.
And I think that fits, again, founders probably better. So I'm really hoping that this is not in 2014 when I left the firm to join Myntra, I had a long chat with, the DGL concept, right? And this senior partner, he couldn't understand. He's like, mantra क्यों जा रहा है यार तू? Like mantra नहीं है, but couldn't understand. So in some ways, and it's become very clear that in some ways some good operators have come from the consulting background, right? I also think a similar thing will happen in this decade in terms of shift from founders to investors.
Yeah.
New firms may come up. I mean, there is
already happening, no?
Yeah. So, like Avnish likes to say, right? Don't focus on the slice of the pie. Just focus on the size of the pie.
Correct.
I think there'll be multiple winners.
Correct.
And multiple firms will come up. Some started by founders, ex-founders. Some where they will join. Even the existing firms will go through a little bit of a rehash. It's a young industry, but like it has matured in China and in US before that, I think the same thing is going to happen in India.
Yeah, I think you're right. Coming to the India point, it's so exciting. It is so exciting to see small things. Yeah, like I was talking to Albinder from Blink.
Yeah, I saw that.
And we were like small things for us, right? For example, the Nagpur Mumbai.
उसमें से मेरे को अभी भी एक क्वेश्चन है कि वो टूथपेस्ट वाला क्वेश्चन मुझे समझ में नहीं आया कि क्यों होता है. तो अगर कि why do people change it? So I still will come back and ask you, quiz you on that on oral care. But yeah, please continue.
No, we were talking about the infra development. So for example, I don't know whether you've traveled by road a lot in the last 2-3 years, but I think at least for me and I think a lot of people, just the quality of roads coming up. So one is when I started happening, I was like, cool, distances have become shorter, or I can get from point A to point B much quickly. The routes look beautiful. My car is easier and I have better fuel efficiency. That was pretty much where my intent or where my excitement kind of ended. But then I started seeing things happening within Bombay Shaving Company. For example, we are now thinking of moving a warehouse, moving the center of gravity of our warehousing in the Maharashtra belt closer to Nagpur because it's just cheaper. And I'm like, fuck, if everyone starts thinking this way, we will obviously start decongesting cities and we'll start creating. If I'm moving a warehouse closer to Nagpur, 1,000 other people are thinking of it. And warehouse is one of 20 investments. Now वहाँ पे अगर warehouse भी है और restaurant भी है और 10 और चीजें भी है, तो वहाँ पे they'll now start coming establishments of people, schools, hospitals, and you will suddenly start seeing the country develop in ways that is kind of non-urban.
A lot more sustainable, distributed. Something that we've seen in US, for example, just multiple urban centers.
Correct.
Where you can lead good quality life.
Correct.
But you don't have to necessarily spend 90 minutes in traffic.
Correct.
And so on. And there are employment options, there are healthcare options, there are education options.
And especially a country that is agriculture in nature, right? So our agricultural lands are well distributed across the country. Mm-hmm. So when we decongest from urban centers, or like the 4 or 5 urban centers get decongested, we will start creating job opportunities for agricultural families who don't want to do agriculture anymore because we will not need so many hands in the farm because of mechanization. So we will suddenly start absorbing, and then agricultural families will start becoming richer. That money will flow back into agriculture, so our exports. I think the spillover effect of infra alone will be massive, and then of course digital, and then startup, capital coming in. This is like 10 independently amazing things just happening together for the next 15-20 years. Plus a demographic that's young, borders that are broadly safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's inevitable. I think I was talking to somebody yesterday on the flight, and he turned out to be a huge fan of your podcast.
Oh really? Who is this?
Yeah. Somebody I met. He was at Flipkart, now he's at Nestle. Category manager for the digital part of the business.
So you met on the flight?
Yeah, I met on the flight.
Okay.
And I was literally giving him the unsolicited advice that whatever you do, just do it here in India, no matter what role you play.
Yeah.
You want to be an investor, you want to be a founder, you want to be an executive. This is the inevitable time for India. I mean, you remember when we were at McKinsey, somebody from Spain had come over, a senior partner, and he came there and he just stood there and said, I love this energy, it's so electric.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand, right? I was like, kya bol raha hai yaar? He's like, yaar, you go back to the place where I'm coming from. The economy is contracting by 0.5%, growing by 0.5% here and there. There isn't that much job creation. I come to India, I'm feeling this surge of excitement. And this is way back in 2012, 2013, right? Imagine winning the lottery, that peak of your careers are coinciding with the golden time.
Correct.
अभी क्या है अभी 3.5 trillion है. And Aji, we were discussing that, right, in the group, and 3.5 is going to go to 7 in next 7.
One election cycle.
Right, 6, 7 years. More interestingly, the digital part of that is going to explode from 5 to anybody's guess.
Correct.
What it will be. Think about the fresh digital GDP, the fresh digital market cap that's being created. It's in the it's crazy.
Yeah. It's not even size of the pie. There are now 2-3 different pies, you know?
Yeah.
And by the way, like and COVID has been a time where people from outside, like Indians who live outside and come back once or twice a year, have not come for 2-3 years. My brother is a classic example.
Yeah.
And I've seen now them coming in they're blown away by just the digital revolution in India. It could be things like delivery, but I think the most of all has been UPI. For them to see like a QR code everywhere, including like a Sulabh Shauchalaya. For a 2 rupee urinal fee, there is a QR code there, which is used because people don't operate in coins anymore. They're like, who will pay $10 and take back 8? Just pay $2 and move on. Peanut seller on the Western Expressway in Bombay has a QR code printed on his shirt pocket.
Yeah.
He's giving out those triangular, it's $20 each. He doesn't have time to the customer doesn't have $20 notes nowadays. Just scans it from the window also, has to come down, the peanut goes in, the scan happens. I don't think he even shows. The customer doesn't even show. Ki boss, I have made the payment. Bombay is one of those cities where there's a lot of trust.
It's on trust,
Just move on. And I was in the US last month with two in fact, a friend of mine, her husband is now a founder of a company called Snapser. Just raised 2 million from A16Z and kind of, first few months of is building a data stack for gaming. He was in Zynga for many years and he's building. He's a tech guy. But he said, I don't know why anyone would come to the US today. I said, you guys are building, you guys bought a home and you guys have jobs and you're building a company and why would you? He's like, no, because we've been here for 6-7 years now. There's green card, the child is now going to school. So there's just inertia to move back. But I'm so jealous of people who are like us, but now are growing in India. And there's no reason why anyone will come to the US. And I'm like, and also, if you look at Europe, for example, the 30-year-old Italian is not living as good a life as her or his parents. And think about us, what kind of life we are living versus the kind of life.
It's not even in the same zip code. My dad's annual salary was less than the 2-month McKinsey internship stipend.
At the same time?
Yes.
It's crazy, no?
I think we have to be grateful.
100%.
I know there are tons of problems in our country, right? We'll all get started and talk for a long time about that. But yeah, you zoom out. You've spoken about this. Life expectancy at independence versus now. GDP per capita. And sure, I know all of that. It's 2,000, but if you take out the top, people, then $700. But I understand that. But that's the journey we are going through.
Yeah.
Look how far we've come.
I agree.
Even when we started, I'm not talking about 50-70 साल also. I'm talking about Treebo जब शुरू किया था यार.
Correct.
2015, we were saying consumer markets are deepening, etc. हम सब लोग pitch में. And then 100 रुपए प्राइस बढ़ाने के लिए इतनी मशक्कत करनी पड़ती है. ये फलाना revenue management system to get slightly better yield for the hotel partner. और ऐसे स्मार्टली नहीं किया तो 100 रुपए बढ़ाया 15% डिमांड गिर गया. ऐसा टाइम वी हैव सीन इन ट्रीबो. बट आई गेट अ सेंस द मार्केट्स आर ट्रूली हियर. हाउ हार्ड वाज इट टू बिल्ड अ 500 crore consumer brand when we started 2015? It was not
impossible. 100 crore. At 4 साल पहले तक 100 crore was like a big deal. Moment we hit 100 crore, people are like, 100 crore तो बहुत आसान.
अभी 1000 करोड़ वाले को बोले यार बेकार. सिर्फ 50 करोड़ EBITDA किया. So in a way, you're probably right कि memory is too short.
Yeah.
And maybe that's actually a good thing for this country, that we're far too young.
Yeah.
and we are far too naive collectively, so we don't know where we can get. I sound like this, beating up drum about India, but I am that way. Me and Navneet took a conscious call कि यार कहीं भी जा सकते हैं. Let's just stay here. Let's just build here. Of course, there are some common goods broken, but it's just far too good an opportunity to let go and not be in India for the next, decade, 2
20 years. I agree. I completely agree. I think there's a migration of the lower middle class to the middle class and creating that fat middle class, which has typically been an urban phenomenon, but now will become a more national one, will have serious unlocks. And I'm really hoping that we don't get distracted by other things, or we don't fall into variables that are externally motivated, like wars or whatever, because those things kind of just they're like a stick in the momentum of things. But it's
I think we have to worry about things that we control, right? There is a circle of concern we have, and then there is a circle of influence, and then there is a circle of control.
Correct.
We need to worry and focus about this.
Correct.
Job creation, for example, would be my number one worry today.
Correct.
क्या करोगे इस young population का?
Correct.
We have to focus on, enabling those. 2 करोड़ लोग आ रहे हैं, 1 करोड़ पढ़ नहीं रहे हैं, 1 करोड़ पढ़ रहे हैं, उसमें से 10 लाख एलीट है, 40 लाख इधर ले दे के जॉब्स हैं.
Agree?
कैसे absorb करोगे? If you don't do that, worry about, frankly, more issues that will crop up from you not being able to provide people jobs. Correct. Then you need to worry about the border skirmish.
Correct. For sure.
And an employed youth is probably going to be the greatest issue socially, economically, that you will have in your cities, towns and villages.
Correct. Hey, what a waste, no? What a waste. Like, I think there was a McKinsey report that said we need to create 1 million jobs a month to hit our target over the next 10 years.
We're going to have million or lakh?
10 lakh per month.
Yeah.
Which should take us to 9 crore jobs over the next 10 years. That's broadly the math.
So, sounds about right.
Right? But we're at 1/4 of that right now. So you're right. I think job creation is, we have to create a 75% delta has to be bridged.
It's a complex problem, yaar.
बहुत ज़्यादा.
And this is not one of your, sorry to look down upon our own, this thing ki P&L dekha hai, 4 account, very complex problem. It's too many moving parts.
Yeah. This is policy, this is government, this is enterprise, this is social reform. This is everything put together.
I think India for the world at least will absorb some of it. Yeah. And I hope we really do that well. PM spoken about hospital for the world. But करना चाहिए यार हमें. और जगह aging population है.
Correct.
Immigration के लिए they are vying so much. हमें यहाँ से serve करना चाहिए.
Correct. Completely agree.
We have to learn from the giants that this country itself has created. The TCSs and the Infosys, and we have to put that on, take it to the next level in multiple sectors.
Yeah.
Hopefully SaaS already is, it's anyway not a new story anymore. Yeah. But the magnitude of that.
Amazing, no?
Now, earlier ऐसा होता है इंडिया में बनाते हैं, थोड़े डिजाइन पार्टनर इंडिया में लाते हैं, थोड़ा सा GTM will do here and then we'll go to US. अभी very clear, day one I'm building for the US. I'm building for the West. एकदम clarity है.
So the founders are there and like it just kind of.
You have to be there. I think there is we're making a segue into the startup world again. There is different PMF in India and different in US.
Correct.
So it really doesn't help you. It's actually a mirage that you manage to get to about 5 million ARR here.
Correct.
And then you go to the West. A lot of the advice that will go is that. But, the central point I think is SaaS will be one.
Yeah.
Of course, that is really, a smaller set of people, developers, product managers who can be employed there, customer success managers and so on. But we have to do that across the board. Healthcare में करना चाहिए.
Correct.
जहाँ पे aging population है West में, we have to find a way to serve it here through a combination of our human capital and technology.
Fully agree.
Education में हो रहा है. Already करता है. I didn't know this, but there are people in US, you will probably relate to it because Yash is there, that world a lot more. Non-Indians their kids are already being taught by Indians here.
Yes. Big time. Big time. It's very structured and it's quite amazing.
I don't think it bridges the 10 lakh jobs a month gap, but it takes some of it.
I agree. I completely agree.
That's one certainly obvious dimension to it. There's another one, and we should talk about this actually, maybe in the Treebo part or otherwise. We like to piss on incumbents, traditional players, but that's our naivety, often.
Completely agree.
That's what we use as fuel to build ourselves up, to build our companies. But the fact is, you ask any reasonable founder, and don't put up any cameras or anything, and you ask them, Yaar, what can you learn from them? वो बोलेगा, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
मैं बताता हूँ क्या. You do traditional hotel chains जिनको हम बोल रहे हैं यार इनसे नहीं होगा, छोटे assets उनको manage नहीं करने आते, technology में dead है, etc. Boss, they figured out their business. ऐसी थोड़ी बनाया उन्होंने.
It's unbelievable how beautiful successful businesses are. Like I sometimes think about it, I'm like, yaar, this is insane. Colgate works on negative working capital. They take money from distributors upfront and they pay their suppliers 6 months later.
Yeah.
So there is generating cash through cash. The business is incidental.
Yeah.
And I think there's a huge difference in running a successful business and building a successful business. They're two different things.
Sure.
And they're both they're difficult in their own way.
Yeah. But anybody who's starting a successful business at some point in time has to run a successful business, right?
Yeah.
And sooner or later you have this realization कि यार there's a reason that person is hiring from a certain talent pool at a certain wage because the cost structure just doesn't work.
Yeah.
या फिर has a practice like that.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to use that to say यार here is the gap, ये disrupt करूँगा.
Correct.
But you in your heart you know कि यार ये 4 dimension पे ना वो तो they are the daddies. उनसे ही सीखना है.
यार Razor पे भी, Gillette में भी there is no way we can compete on their upper end razors.
Yeah.
It's just the 1904 से razor बनाते यार ये लोग. Like it's foolhardy to think that we can come in and break every category and every. Yeah. Sure, you're right. We'll find certain nooks and corners. Trimmers, for example, the category we can win something here. But
same thing. Sid was telling me about like Radisson के साथ जो partnership है. He's saying we're getting to learn so much from them, bhai, about the business. Of course, we are going to be good at certain things because we are native to this world. We are digital natives. We understand how to drive demand. We know how to do, low touch quality management and so on and so forth. But बहुत कुछ development में उन्हें पता है. Negotiation कैसे करते हैं उन्हें पता है. Contract कैसे build करने उन्हें पता है. क्योंकि they're doing for donkeys years, यार. So it's not absolutely foolhardy like you're saying to think कि हमें एकदम ही नए सोचा है हमने. थोड़ा सोचा है, तेज है हम. But yeah, there's a lot more to learn. So it's that is the other non-obvious dimension. There's an obvious dimension कि there's somebody will buy you and therefore don't piss them. Second, just be open and learn from these guys. Yeah. For a long time, I think I was close to it. क्या 3 साल ना I'm like cribbing. We are not being accepted in the true hospitality world. We don't have a calling card there. But the truth is that I'm also close to it. I think that these guys are just too old and so on and so forth. जब पता चला कि our challenges are similar, वो भी ओनर चर्न की बात कर रहा है, मैं भी ओनर चर्न की बात कर रहा हूँ. जैसे दैट मेरा ज्यादा होता है, छोटे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे होता है, उसका बड़ा होता है, बिग बैंग इवेंट होता है. व्हेन अ JW Marriott let's say gets removed and somebody else, यहाँ पे पुलमैन था वो ले मेरिडियन बन गया या the other way around. That's a bigger event. But it's the same churn that has happened जब वो Treebo से OYO बन गया या the other way around.
Correct.
So our solutions will also look somewhat similar.
Correct.
I think वो realization जल्दी आ जाए ना तो better है.
I agree completely. For example, we were talking to Mukul about Wyndham. I had no idea that's such a big group, yaar. It's global. I'm like, boss, कैसे चलाते होंगे यार? And it's an efficiency business. Hospitality is an efficiency service business. It's not easy. It's every day, same thing over and over.
It is efficiency. It's actually incredibly hard. It's efficiency without losing the warmth. We think of efficient businesses as being cold. Right? Airlines, we love to beat around airlines. It's treating me like cattle. It's a hard business.
Yeah.
So hospitality is many flights to 2 घंटे की है, Average guy is staying for 48 hours with you.
Yeah.
There are far more things that can go wrong than in a cab ride or in a flight.
Correct.
In the hotel. So to maintain a tight control on cost, run a very efficient ship, but to not lose that human touch.
Correct. At every touch point.
हाँ सर ironing चाहिए 3 घंटे में 2 घंटे में तुरंत करके लाएंगे. Certainly. Do you remember like McKinsey में we would stay in a, I think Taj has to be my favorite brand है. उनको बोलोगे ना यार मेरे को चांद चाहिए तो पहले वो बेचारा यही बोलेगा यार certainly. तो फिर शायद सोचेगा कि क्या करना है etc. It's amazing how they're able to marry. There's so much to learn. In fact, by the way, hotels, when you come to that, I think there's a lot to learn for other industries as well.
From hotels?
Like just think about it, यार. Customer obsession के बारे में हम worry करते रहते हैं. Who's more customer obsessed than the hospitality industry? Think of the greatest brands that you think of, right?
Yeah.
You think of Oberoi, you think of Taj.
Yeah. You were telling me, and by the way, after you told me, I started noticing that when you have breakfast at an Oberoi, and you ask for eggs, and the eggs are on the side, continuing, like let's say you're eating an idli or whatever, and the eggs get cold, someone just changes them. Yeah. It's wasteful. But there is someone who keeps an eye on the fact that you're eating warm eggs.
Absolutely.
And they're preempting it and delighting you without even realizing that. And then when you walk away from that, you feel like there are these 1,000 experiences that have come together for me in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
What those are, you may not be able to put an exact finger on each time, but it's amazing.
I think I've told you this before, like Oberoi in particular, but the same applies for other brands as well. So Oberoi, Kapil Chopra, Kapil, right?
Yeah.
Just probably the authority in the hospitality world. He's building Postcard, which is an amazing brand.
I saw someone put up a post about Postcard also the other time, but sorry, go ahead.
The Postcard, we can go on and it's a lovely brand. Like, no breakfast timings. You get up, you have breakfast. It can be at 8 a.m. or it can be at 11:30 a.m. or whatever. Right? So, ridiculously luxurious. But Kapil used to talk about, I've learned like so much. I think we've learned so much from what he used to talk about the Oberoi brand, and he distilled it down to 4 simple principles. It's like there is warm welcome, there is a zero defect product, there is anticipatory service, and there is fond farewell. That's our playbook.
Say that again.
Warm welcome, zero defect product,
okay,
anticipatory service, and fond farewell.
Wow.
How much wisdom do you need to have? How many years of experience do you need to have to distill it down to these 4 basics that your front office associate to your housekeeping supervisor, to the housekeeping executive, to the F&B manager? Everybody understands this. And it is consistent in every Oberoi experience. What you were just mentioning is anticipatory service.
Correct.
Actually, you take it to the... तुम्हें actually ज़्यादा बार पता भी नहीं चलेगा कि पानी कब pour हो रहा है. It'll be the most non-intrusive way of doing something without disturbing your conversation.
Correct.
Anticipatory service. You've posted about this where तुम्हारा, shaving cream is running out.
Yeah.
Or your deodorant is running out.
Correct.
It's now a process. They will replace it. The person will write a handwritten letter and say, I noticed that your thing was running out. And I just have taken the liberty of, replacing it with the same or similar brand. It's handwritten and signed by the housekeeping guy. We've shamelessly copied this at Treebo. Shamelessly, absolutely. Great artist steal, right?
Yeah.
So there's just so much to learn from phenomenal brands on customer obsession like Oberoi or Taj, where they recognize that these are these little micro touch points that go into making a great experience.
Correct.
So you can be obsessive about efficiency, what Ravi was saying. You can cut a lot, but there are some things you mustn't.
Correct.
And running that is very, very difficult. So we've learned, I think, for a long time, we are the, tech hoteliers. We are the digital hoteliers. And that's true. We know the digital, but there's a lot to learn on hoteliering.
Correct.
That the incumbents have taught us.
Absolutely. But talk about the Treebo journey. How did it, actually wanted to share something with you, which I found in my football bag of all places. Is this.
My God.
I have like 100 of these in my bag. I have 100 of these. I think we're going to play football once together.
Oh yeah.
And you had kept them with me.
Oh yeah. And then we rebranded, so I never
So you
needed
don't
them.
you don't need them at all.
God, we've rebranded so many times.
So I was like, wow. And yesterday I found these in my bag. I'm like, wow, how serendipitous. How serendipitous.
Wow.
But tell me about starting up, and I was a big part of for me that period was a big part of my journey as well. But talk about the years at Treebo. How did it start out? What was the initial thinking? I remember, I think you and Sid wanted to start up. Hospitality was an eventual choice. It's not like you guys are super passionate about it on day zero, and you kind of found your way into that business after evaluating a few others and talking to people. But talk about that journey a little bit.
So the story is really boring, honestly. It's not. I wish I had a nice little juicy backstory to tell you about. मैं और सिड हम पी गए, गंदे से लॉज में रुके, बाथरूम नहीं चल रहा था. We said hospitality change कर देंगे at budget price point. नहीं हुआ ऐसा. So it's a lot more top down, boring consulting way. Actually, it wasn't the first idea we started out with.
Okay.
So on 16th of January 2015, the first time we really said, okay, this is it. We are going to go for it. We're going to start up together. It was born out of the itch to start up and not necessarily a specific problem. When you're surrounded by the stalwarts, right? You've seen Sachin, Binny, Mukesh in action. It's infectious. It's inspiring.
Correct.
And that, cohort particularly, that company particularly has spawned so many startups. And while I was there only for like 6 months, I think it was enough for me to see what the possibility could be. So I think the first time we discussed it, the working idea was local services.
Okay.
So both of us felt कि यार, थोड़ा local services solve करना चाहिए. We don't have a Amazon-like experience when you need a plumber, you need an electrician, and so on and so forth, right? तो उसको solve करते हैं. कुछ नहीं सोचा, unit economics. Of course, it doesn't start like that. You start with a problem.
Correct.
First. And we felt कि चलो idea चाहे ये रहे ना रहे, team ये रखते हैं. So in a way, the team came well before the idea for me. Yeah, much before. Which is why we've explored in the time period between January and April until we committed. We explored whatever, typical consulting DD चला दिया था हमने. ये 34 idea, 34 ideas, quickly filtered through 7 in-depth evaluation. And see, I think local services, we gave up, we couldn't see.
Urban company TaskBob were up that time?
So, yeah, I haven't told this to anybody, but I'll tell you a funny story about that. So, some of them were around. Yeah, there were 110 local services startups born in 2015. I don't know how many of them were there in January. I think Urban Company was there. But it was a little, scrappy website that had come up and said, if you want to host your kid's birthday party, you can call us. If you want to do this, you can call us. So, it was 2 or 3 use cases. And
you guys are Urban Clap?
Urban Company, Urban Clap then. And I wasn't 100% sold on the thesis, but I still wanted to see कि लोग कर क्या रहे हैं. And I just wanted to see कि जो start कर रहा है वो है कौन, कितना metal है, क्या है. So one night I was up. In those times I, slept much later. So 4:30 a.m. I'm not yet asleep. I was like, call करके देखता हूँ इसको. Urban Company को के hotline को. If somebody picks up or not, how available are they? How customer centric are they? So I called. So somebody picks up in a very sleepy voice and is angry, of course. Somebody's calling him at 4:30. It was somebody's own personal number. And then I can hear grumbling from a female voice in the background. Some choicest words being thrown. ऐसे मेरे बच्चे को, I need to host a birthday party for Kabir and, for my kid, etc. The guy patiently heard me out and said, I will need to get back to you. This isn't, I can't respond right now. Took my call. It was Abhiraj.
Wow.
Himself.
Wow.
And I think I realized that I felt in that moment that this person or this company will go on to do something. The customer obsession's there. It's shown, right? But that wasn't the real reason to drop that. Thought thesis, I'm lukewarm. We went through many ideas. I think the closest I came to was starting a local delivery company.
Okay.
We initially thought we'll try to build the delivery layer. Us time काफी B2B का भी thought process था. Then margin compression होगा. So okay, we have to go vertical first. What are the big vertical use cases? So I think it would have become Swiggy in some shape or form, like company. Of course, wouldn't have been or may not have been as successful as they are. They're a phenomenal company. But after all of that meandering, we said, look, we want to build something that has good unit economics. It has to be something that we are passionate about. We have to have experienced the personal pain point ourselves.
Correct.
It can't be borrowed conviction.
Correct. But how many of you were there?
It was me and Sid to start with. But I think we were clear that technology-led, technology-enabled at least business banana hai. So we knew हमें तो कुछ नहीं आता. Sid says कि hello world वगैरह उसने काफी कोड किया हुआ है. But we needed somebody, and we were asking some of our friends to interview potential co-founder candidates, and inevitably it came down to Caddy, who we knew. So we said, yaar help kar de, engineer to at least pehla hire kar de, if not the CTO. And over time we kept discussing with him, and finally we felt, yaar, why do ask somebody else? This will work. So it became 3 of us somewhere around May. January it was me and Sid, but well before the formal launch, there were 3 of us.
And Caddy came after the decision that you were going to do something in hospitality.
I mean, we kept updating him, so in some ways kept taking his point of view as well. But yeah, we both were committing to it. The capital situation got clarified, as you know, in our case before the company incorporation.
Correct.
It was the heady days. Never has, I think 2021 apart, there hasn't been a year like 2015 on company creation. So there was a lot of probably easy money going around. Otherwise, who'd back inexperienced founders like us who have no relation to hospitality? So we got like a 6 million seed before the company was incorporated. So Caddy, just around the same time it got finalized. And once we had committed to the idea, I think it took us another month or 2 to get off the ground. We went through a bunch of iterations there as well. This was the time of the dash rooms.
Correct.
Right? So every Monday you would have a new player saying dash rooms. Koi na koi. So the model was कि यार देखो spare inventory पड़ी है hotel के पास, उसको pre-buy कर लेते हैं. We became their anchor customer. We'll resell it. उसके एवज में we'll tell you कि what standards to maintain. At least the theoretical framework was that, right?
Correct.
Saying you have to put our runner, you have to put our type of toiletries, etc. And as we went through that and we talked to customers, had our own experiences, talked to hotelier, we realized this model will not work. Because hospitality isn't about that room you stay in.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter whether your runner is red or green or blue.
Correct.
Sure, it adds to consistency in the aesthetics, but where is the consistency in the experience? And that comes from the people.
Correct.
So if you're taking 3 or 5 rooms from a 25-room property somewhere, how will you deliver a good experience?
Correct.
So we tried to cop out saying ek floor le lenge, etc. Shop in shop type of hotel in hotel type of. And eventually, I think this was one day where me, Sid, Navneet were discussing late, at my place. And next day, I think we were meeting one of the investors, actually Matrix only. And that night we were like, yaar, we need to shun this cloak of we will build a hospitality company by doing this aggregation, etc. We need to pick a lane. अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस बनाना है या फिर अभी जस्ट शैम करना है और स्केल करना है. We finally said, यार, what are we worried about? Let's be authentic. Let's be true to ourselves.
Correct.
Let's pick this. If you pick taking an entire hotel, rebranding it, the friction there is much higher. Your scalability, at least in the early days, is going to be much lower.
Correct.
Oh, Archana residency hai. He's named that after daughter or wife, etc. You are asking the owner to co-brand with you. Literally, I've been thrown out of meetings saying, तूने जरूरत कैसे की ट्रीबो पहले बोलने का? अगर तूने बोला होता डैश होटल बाय ट्रीबो तो फिर भी चला लेता. How are you expecting me to say Treebo dash? Out. Send me off from the hobby, right? Early days. So the friction is much higher. But that's what is going to give you the control on experience that you need which is the original problem you are setting out to solve.
Correct.
Rooms की availability तो problem नहीं है ना, multi-million rooms are available in the country. The problem is that they are not running at good quality experience. And the problem is two-sided. That this person lives with 45-50% occupancy and this customer does not have good quality.
Correct.
But you cannot, the model cannot be a sham.
Correct.
That was the start, and we presented our first business plan and said we will do 70 hotels in year one. And this is a time when the one player is already saying I have 4,000 hotels. I'm saying I'll have 70. The second player that time, which does not exist anymore, will have already has 2,000 hotels. 2,000 whatever storefronts, hotels, etc. So, क्या बोल क्या रहे हो यार? Like some of the investors were like not understanding. You're not building the same thing. We're not. We want to build a high quality hotel brand.
Correct.
That is technology. That is building an aggregator. And there is some kind of intellectual pleasure you can take in knowing that 2-3 years mein everybody eventually had to go to that model because it was so obvious. But I think there are no points for intellectual wins, only for execution ones, right? But that was the humble start. We started with 4 hotels in Bangalore.
That was one of the smarter things, like one of the very smart things at an industry level. Okay, I remember staying in a Treebo very early on. 2015, 2016, I started staying in Treebos. And the consistent experience was very, very high. Like, I always felt like you guys, at that price point, were able to squeeze in a lot for the consumer. Like, you would have that welcome drink. I remember saying, I till date, even in Taj and ITC, I don't get much of a welcome drink. मतलब मिलता है तभी हमें पीता नहीं हो जाता. Like, it's not one of those things. The only place where I genuinely have welcome drink, because I feel like squeezing it out, is business class in an airline. I'm like, boss, this is 2 hours, clearly the special thing. So whatever the fuck you're feeding me, I'm going to have it. But in a hotel, I don't do it. But you're like, नहीं यार, welcome drink is important.
Let me actually ask you. जब महिपालपुर में जाते हो या कहीं और जहाँ पे भी होटल स्ट्रिप होती है, what kind of names do you see? What are the budget hotel names?
Like Archana Residency, stuff like that.
Right? बहुत सारे नाम होते हैं. Royal Mansion, Grand Plaza. There's nothing grand or plaza about that hotel.
Yeah.
It's not mansion. But doesn't matter kitna paisa the Indian customer, or for that matter any customer, but particularly the Indian customer is spending. They want to be treated well when on a vacation. जब मैं घर से बाहर हूँ, I want to be treated well. Because मैं छुट्टी पे आया. तो अगर मैंने चाय मंगाई, please serve it to me piping hot in 10 minutes. मेरे घर पे हो सकता है मेरे को जाके बनाना हो. Doesn't matter. But here, I've come here to kick back and enjoy. So when I come into your hotel, carry my luggage up. Speak to me nicely.
Yeah.
Serve me hot food. Have you seen how Western model of budget hospitality is in stark contrast to the Indian one? What's the average budget hotel experience in Paris, for example?
It's very like dingy, small room.
छोटे से room, main जगह पे होगा. It will be actually real estate will be kind of
solid.
Yeah, solid. It will be a big box. छोटे room, often prefabricated.
Correct.
But sterile.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
The minimal. Or how many people manning a 40-room hotel? Typically one.
1 or 2, yeah.
In the evening, there'll be an intern. Here, you need 8 people probably to run a 30-room property who are all multi-skilled. Why? Because we don't like the cold model of hospitality, which is what actually the Western brands initially got wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't want vending machine.
Yeah.
I want hot food.
Correct.
Hot breakfast free at Treebo में. उसमें range वो नहीं होगी. Of course, you don't expect a 5-star buffet range, but it's going to be there. गरम पोहा होगा या पराठा होगा या पूरी सब्जी होगा.
Correct.
चाय कॉफी होगा. So in some ways, the welcome drink is the true, it captures what that customer really wants.
It's aspirational, it feels pampering. Because you're right, like that customer is probably living a very difficult life outside.
Yeah.
Is traveling in a sales job, possibly is probably in the fields, or is in a shop all day, and now has taken his family and his 2 kids to a hotel, and yeah, wants to be treated well.
And actually the model can work. I'm happy to go 2 lanes out I don't need to be on the main street of Indiranagar.
Correct.
That I'm okay compromising. When I know I'm not staying in Ramada, which is on the main road.
Correct.
I will stay in a Treebo 2 lanes down.
Correct.
But अच्छे से बात आप भी करना, गरम खाना देना, टॉयलेट साफ रखना.
Correct.
Linen clean होनी चाहिए.
Correct.
When my mother, would travel with us when we were kids, what were the two things she would care about? It's a very vivid memory for me, right? We used to have this Premier Padmini Fiat.
Correct.
North, grew up in the north. मसूरी छुट्टी के लिए पहुंचे, बाहर पार्क हुआ होटल के, बच्चे बैठे हुए हैं, पापा इज गोइंग टू द फ्रंट डेस्क टू नेगोशिएट एंड मॉम इज गोइंग टू द रूम टू लुक एट द रूम. व्हाट डज शी लुक एट? शी लुक्स एट इज द लिनन क्लीन एंड शी ओपन्स द बाथरूम, सीज इफ इट्स क्लीन इनफ.
Correct.
And she's still carrying 2 more bed sheets in her suitcase so that पता है कि यार 500 रुपये खर्च कर रहे हैं, अच्छा तो मिलेगा नहीं बहुत, तो चादर बिछा लेंगे जैसे अपने बच्चों को, don't have to sleep on a dirty bed sheet. That is the Indian customer. Cares about those basics, but those better be right. And sure, things have changed. Sure, that chai would have become the cappuccino and the fan has become the AC and so on and so forth. Price point has gone from the 300 rupees to the 2000.
Correct.
But the demand for those basics has not gone away. I don't want to compromise on that. And I think a lot of that went into our thinking. So we are like, completely isko grounds up karte hain. Let's not copy anyone.
What I love about Treebo personally is that you have not that fundamental intrinsic of the brand. The brand has changed. You have rebranded all that. But what is the fundamental intrinsic? So I believe that every brand should be known for one thing. Like everything else is kind of peripheral, right? Red Bull is known for energy.
Yeah.
Maggi is known for 2-minute tasty, amazing noodles. Cadbury is known for a fantastic chocolate. Now they'll always like that chocolate will have a celebration and happiness, and they'll kind of beautifully package it. Yeah. But in the consumer's mind, when you say Cadbury, it is a delicious dairy milk chocolate, right? Gillette is a beautiful shave, like clean, the best shave you can get. I always felt for Treebo that it was about a comfortable, pampering stay at a good price. Consistently you will get the same. You won't get the moon. Like for example, I think your breakfast buffet was a fantastic personification, or not. It was fantastic. It exemplified your core, which was, I will give you 4 things, or maybe even 3 things. I'll give you a paratha. I'll give you eggs in 2 forms, and cornflakes with hot and cold milk. I will not give you anything else, right? But all of that will be hot, fresh, and someone will serve it to you. Like I remember, I would test this in Treebo, and I do this a lot. I don't like to hold a plate and pick things up in a buffet. I just don't like to do it because like मेरी भूख आधी मर जाती है उस process में. For me, I like to sit at the table, and even with a buffet, I know it's not that person's job to get me, but I want to tell him.
India is the only market where this happens, by the way. If you talk to any of the 5-star chains, it's the only market जहाँ पे cost structure à la carte वाला है. Even in the buffet, यार बेचारे ने buffet इसीलिए लगाया है. यार जाके कर लो, हाँ. But it's just, so you've seen in India, the buffet will run from 7 a.m.
to
11:30. 11 तो मतलब बोला, but 11:01 पे somebody will enter, you will not say no. फिर वो 11:40 तक बैठेगा. तो by the time the last people leave, वो नया lunch का लगा रहा है. It's one of the craziest things.
Correct.
And it's almost only in India.
Correct.
That this happens. So customers like you are responsible for something like that.
I love it. I'm like, boss, मेरे को ना चाय चाहिए और ये, and always it's hot. And I was like, this is amazing. It's hot, fresh, limited but great. And you have stayed true to it. You've rebranded multiple times. You guys have kind of had multiple levels of hotels.
Yeah, we've had to. I think I'm glad you say that, because we had a hypothesis that people will want this, right? People will want basics sorted, but don't necessarily expect unreasonable stuff. I am actually happy if my hotel is rated 7.5 on 10, but that comes from not being 9 and 5 on days, but from being actually 7 to 8
every time.
Yeah, because वो मेरा पहला promise है customer को. So I'm quite glad that you said you will get a reasonable experience with all the basics sorted, and we like to pamper as much as possible in the constraints of our business, whatever cost structure constraints, talent constraints we have, etc. But we are more concerned about first taking that जो Oberoi का जो 4 point वो है, जो zero defect product, we want to fix that first.
But tell me, Rahul, we were talking about Treebo, and I think you started off with a bang, money out of the bank, great, like tremendous pedigree founders, found your lane fairly quickly. You realized that taking the whole stack of the hotel and the right price point, focusing on the experience, and I think you cracked it till date. I think Treebo has cracked the customer experience. I remember in the retreat you had said that hospitality mein there are 3 axes to kind of optimize on, and you make choices as a leadership team, right? Profitability, revenue, and customer experience.
Yeah, we call it experience, economics, and expansion. Yeah, easier to remember. 3 E's. Yeah.
This is like such a smart. Yeah. And you said that you can, like good companies will get 2 of these 3 right, and will have to compromise on the third. And it was very clear that you guys were unit economics and customer experience focused, and you said growth will happen as an outcome of doing these 2 very well over a period of time. But of course, COVID happened, and I think the industry was defined in a large way by capital that flew in very quickly to you, and of course there was a very super funded, extremely aggressive competitor that you guys had. How did that shape your personal founder journey, or you and Sid, like you guys, let me give you a sense, right? Sid and you kind of got me on as a mentor to Akhil. We spent a lot of time with some of the other people within Treebo, and there was always a very high amount of regard for the founding team because of just perseverance, resilience, and just wanting to be conscientious and right always, which was amazing to see, given that it was a very difficult kind of environment. Pandemic was unpredictable on multiple fronts before and even during, and even now I think finally we're kind of getting out of it. But how was that? Because building a business like we were talking about is anyways hard. Without all of this is anyways hard. With this was like a multiplier effect. And how was that for you guys?
I think it grew me a whole lot as a person. And I think that's because, like many of us, I have never truly faced failure in the same way that happens to you when you're a founder, right? Before that, if you ask me, what was the worst day I remember, in my life, when I was really like upset, it was probably the day JEE results came out. And I was wailing to my mother about the point that 2641 rank आई है, life तो खत्म है अब, कुछ नहीं हो सकता, right? So you are used to coming through the education system where typically you're the class topper and you've done well in some competitive exam, then you go, you have terrible, branch, you have metallurgy in one of the non-fancied IITs. So that's like the limit of your failure, right, in a way. So more or less life has been a cruise.
Yeah.
What is stress in McKinsey, right? Deck nahi bana, right? Client kya bole? It's not frankly mission critical for
anyone.
Yeah. So the first time, I felt like, damn, this shit doesn't work that easily. It was really hard for me. I took it very personally.
What was the trigger?
Multiple. So, it just helps that COVID has not been necessarily the only crisis we faced along the way. Maybe it was the biggest macro crisis, but frankly, companies had many near-death experiences well before that. So right from the beginning, born in the jungle, literally. So, you launch on the 40th day, your competitor gets 100 million from SoftBank. Now, well-meaning guys, around the table are saying, yaar, kuch aur kar lo, tum to achhe log ho. This is going to be hard, but in all our naivety and the purity of first-time founders, we're like, nahi, we need to solve this problem. Achhe se nahi kar rahe, hum karenge. And of course, that's going to be hard from there on, right?
Correct.
So from the get-go, I remember it was a day in September. We had just launched in May, June. In September, on the same day, every single employee and every single hotel was called by our competitor. I was like, sorry, we came here to build a business, serve the customer. ये क्या street fight लड़ना पड़ रहा है? That's, sure, in my adrenaline-filled, version, I can feel like, we'll take it, but it doesn't give me any joy.
Correct. It's a distraction.
Absolutely, and it's joyless. Why am I going to enjoy winning this micro victory when all I should be focusing on is solving this insanely hairy problem for this vast populace. So I think from then I knew that life's going to be hard. But I think the first real big one was when one of our biggest distributors, the marketplaces we work with, they kind of delisted us, and it happened overnight, and it was, I think at that point in time, 25-30% of our business. But
and this was for no reason?
No, I mean, everything has a context. Companies have to safeguard their own interests. I can't say too much about it because in some ways they're an important.
We went to the court, it was in the papers and all also. Right?
Partner with us, and it's all good now. But at some point in time, they needed to take care of their interests, and they thought that was the best way for them to do it. There was a lot of private label kind of plays happening on the marketplace front, and we got delisted, and we lost, I think, 27% of our business. In a two-sided market, if you lose 25% of your business, it's not 25% loss.
Yeah.
It's a serious negative spiral that takes you to very down to 50% of your network very quickly, and it's a death knell if you don't arrest it. So it was quite hard, and then you needed to launch a brand campaign in 20 days because that's the only way for you to now quickly drive demand for your hotel partners that are running dry right now. And they leave you if they of course they love Treebo team and all that, but they are there because they need to make better.
It's a business.
Yeah. The guy, micro entrepreneur, needs to take care of his own bills. He's come because there is a lift in occupancy and in RevPAR, revenue per available room.
Correct.
तो मेरे को भरना है, heads on beds चाहिए. So we launched the app. So I think I got used to, after some period of time, facing failure and not taking it personally. But for that period of time, it was really hard. I was like, I'm not good enough. Am I even built to be? क्या सोच रहा हूँ मैं? I should have been a, consulting guy. I'm not. I'm sure we all, I've number of founders who have this imposter syndrome. We all do. Yeah. We have insecurities. We may not, showcase it because we are always selling.
Correct.
To somebody. A customer, an employee, a board member, to media. The fact is, we all face it.
Correct.
So, I took it very personally, right? Second trigger was, I think one of our big rounds fell through and had to let go of a few people. It was 12% of the company, right? But more importantly, it was scores of people. And that broke something in me the first time it happened.
Did you have those chats yourself?
We made it a point to. So, by the way, that's, if there is a, letting go people is hard, but there are many wrong ways of doing it and very few right ways of doing it. For example, doing it on Zoom call is definitely not a good idea. We know now, thanks to several startups. But there are very few right ways of doing it, and we decided if you're going to make hard decisions, we're going to do it ourselves. We won't get a leadership team or HR to do the dirty work for us. So there were 80 people let go.
Wow.
And one third was handled by 3 founders with another, person from our people function alongside. But we did that.
One-on-one chats.
One-on-one chats. I mean, we had to coach leaders because eventually they'll be asked a lot more than us. So yeah, we prepared a script and we told them this is what you should say. And we, frankly, it sounds, overtly processy, But there is a process you should follow in this. You've just told somebody, likely for the first time in their life, that they don't have a job. Most people are being let go for the first time. Think about what that means. The feeling of rejection, feeling of going home, knowing that you don't have necessarily the means. Many of them who, are not privileged enough. This is serious financial burden.
Yeah.
So
and uncertainty, right?
Yeah. Sure, we live in a world of abundance where the employer-employee relationship is not anymore that our parents' generation fell through, but it's still a very emotional time.
Yeah.
Even techies who would have 3 job offers all the time, the feeling that,
I'm not wanted.
Yeah, is broke something in me, and it was hard for me. Blaming yourself for nearly everything, because that's anyway, if you're letting go of people, who's missed the business plan, who's not foreseen the uncertainty.
Yeah.
The person who's joined you on your mission doesn't care.
Yeah.
You sold it to her when you spoke to her about doing things together and how they'll be able to grow, etc. So you actually express it to them in terms of a personal failure, but as you use that language, it seeps in, and that is a debilitating feeling, right?
Yeah, I can agree.
Like it's borderline high functioning depression. You are smashed at the end of the day. You have absolutely, you're dead, your eyes are glazed, but you got to go in the morning, do the same thing again and again, because that's what you've set out to do.
What do you learn about yourself? And you're a father to a young boy growing up, and there's like whole host of things happening at home, whole lot of shit happening at work.
Yeah.
Like was it just a lot? And then you were obviously hard on yourself, so it's not like.
Yeah. We can't fractionalize ourselves and insulate one versus the other.
Correct.
So you're the same person, and what's happening to you at work, and you can't even call it work for founder, it's life.
Life, yeah.
Right? You're not here because of an employment contract. It's because of a lifelong dream, a desire to make a mark on the world, to leave a legacy behind. So in some ways, it's your whole self you bring to work and take home.
Correct.
And that has its problems, because if things don't work, it's all fluid. It shows up in you being unavailable for your kid.
Correct.
While you're physically present, you're not there, or for your spouse. Right? For the longest time, I wouldn't call my parents back home in UP for weeks altogether, and they wouldn't call me because they didn't want to disturb me. Right? In some ways, I didn't nurture those relationships as much as I should have, because actually those relationships can help.
Yeah.
In times like these.
But you distanced.
Yeah, because you're looking inward. You're like, I don't want to reach out. I don't want to reach out to a mentor because मैं क्या बोलूँगा? To a peer. कुछ बना लेता हूँ फिर जाता हूँ. Right? Whereas बात करेगा तो
पता चलेगा.
और कुछ बना पाएगा, right? So you stop seeking help. You stop being available at home. And so yeah, I think I learned to have more kindness, more patience with myself. It's that time I realized that emotional energy is sitting on top of mental energy, which is sitting on top of physical energy. If you don't have physical energy, forget building a company. You can't do anything well. Take care of yourself first. And therefore I started investing a lot into just fitness. It was my only vacation I'd taken in a while, and I remember Navneet's team at Bain had gone to Sri Lanka, and so I said, okay, chalo, this weekend I'll come along. And we were in the Gaul area, the fort, and team was sitting down for lunch. I was like, I'm in sports gear, I haven't run in ages, I'll go and just test out if I'm still okay. It was the Sri Lankan heat at 1 p.m. or so, and I went running. And I ran for 3 kilometers and I was dead. Just dead. And it changed something for me. I was like, damn, life is just is passing me by. I am a reasonable athlete. At least in college I was. And suddenly I'm this guy. I can't identify with this person anymore. I don't want to be this person, because I don't have time for physical fitness. But the fact is that if I have time for that, I'll be able to work harder, think better, be better. So even for from Treebo's perspective, it's better if I'm more, available, in better shape. And then I decided, that's it. It's paid off even for the company because I was able to contribute more. Actually, sometimes by doing less.
Yeah.
Activity is not impact. Speed is not velocity. Distance is not displacement.
Correct.
So, it actually made me a better professional. But there's another reason why it helped. It made me go from being a outcome driven person to being a habits obsessed one. And that mental shift, when that happens, it's actually much easier to tide through some of the lows, but also some of the highs. Correct. The highs can get to you. The same way the lows can. People talk about lows getting to you, highs can get to you.
Correct.
We see this, brash founder persona, it's got to your head, etc. That's because you are letting the outcomes dictate your own assessment of the situation. Correct. Frankly, things aren't as good or as bad as they appear.
Correct.
If you're more inputs driven, more habits driven, which I think the greatest professional athletes are, and to that extent, we can borrow something. I hate, sports analogies applying to business because most of them don't. And we can have a whole lot of conversation on that. But in this case, it does. Yeah. So it changed me also into somebody who would worry a lot more about what can I control? What do I do every day? Does it pass the Monday morning test?
And a maniacal focus on that. Yes. Like I've seen you kind of just go at your SPO2 and like every metric, like you went after it the way you would at business, and it's paid off because I also get my best ideas when I'm not at work. I get my best ideas when I'm either playing the tabla or I'm exercising or I'm taking a walk.
Yeah,
is when my mind is best. You're right. Physical energy, mental energy, and you become emotionally available. Tell me about your and your co-founder Sid. I don't know Caddy too well, but Sid is just one of the most incredible human beings. And I wanted to kind of go deeper, and you both are very close friends of mine. I wanted to go into your relationship with Sid and how that has kind of evolved from being at McKinsey together, IIT Roorkee, then McKinsey together, then Myntra together, then starting a company. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, and I probed Sid in Goa when you were not come for what Rajgo's party, right? You have been very, very strict about either of you not being the CEO. And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, why? Because I am a big believer in the fact that leaders create momentum. It doesn't matter whether who has more equity or who's older or who's put in more money. That's not inconsequential. But my view is there has to be a leader. There has to be a captain. Yeah. And it could be, by the way, that for 2 years, like sometimes it's Rohit, sometimes it's Virat, sometimes and Australia has done it very well across formats. But to not have it at all is a strange choice. That's not strange, but kind of a differing choice from mine, which you guys have talked about. Talk about your relationship and specifically about this one thing.
So it's a very special relationship for me, right? It's hard to put a parallel to it because it's very unique, and evolved over time. So I've known Sid for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. I started to get to know him when I was 17, 18, right?
So all of your adult life, basically.
But frankly, I didn't know too much of him because we were very different people and therefore different camps in undergrad. Okay. Sure, we went to IIT Roorkee together. We are a year apart there. But, I was a jock. I would spend 5 hours on the field, remaining time with then girlfriend, now wife. And I didn't like to study too much. I didn't enjoy my branch and so on and so forth. Sid is, chairman of the college magazine, really amazing in acads, just like a very, very popular guy on campus, right? So we knew of each other, but I don't think, we had the same level of camaraderie that started to develop around 2008.
You joined McKinsey.
We were doing summers at McKinsey.
Correct.
And I think I just decided, man, like life is too short to be naive like you are in undergrad when you're finding yourself. I want to build a relationship with this guy. I respect him. I may not have liked him, he may not have liked me, but now I want to build a relationship with him. And now there's an opportunity to do that. So I got over some of my insecurities and fears and, said...
That is so cute.
No, it did happen like that. It happened actually in an IMB auditorium when we had gone for Sangharsh, right? And I hopped over to him and said, what's happening?
You were all based in Delhi or
Yeah, all Delhi.
हाँ.
Yeah, so we've done enough of that. You remember there was a time there was Genpact building and बाजू में वो पराठे रात को we would be often found there. Yeah. So there were it was a friendship that blossomed along the way, and frankly the families kind of got quite close. Jyoti, Palak, Navneet, me, Dabas, Sid, we spent the December as well together on a chutti. So we kind of became close. And then when I moved to Myntra on just a whim, saying अब कुछ नया करते हैं, McKinsey में advice करके नहीं हो रहा है, कुछ तो हो रहा है startup world में, Bangalore चलते हैं. I left and then I came back. I remember I came back and told them, boss, सैलरी कट लेने को भी नहीं बोल रहे हैं, ऊपर से ESOP टाइप की कोई चीज़ है वो दे रहे हैं. And it's great work. ऑफिस देखोगे तो it's not this one of these sterile banking consulting offices. मतलब it's like a fashion show is happening there. So and it just that conversation.
Salary cut.
Oh, that was a big one for me. So my thought process was इतना पैसा मुझे चाहिए नहीं life में. I told you, right, coming from fairly modest small town UP background, low consumption guy even now, right? So I had decided 35% तक कट अगर मुझे बोला तो मैं ले लूंगा बिना किसी टेंशन के. ठीक है, इसके नीचे ऑफर किया, आई टोल्ड नवनीत, इसके नीचे ऑफर किया ना, आई एम नॉट श्योर आई विल अग्री. ओके, नॉट बिकॉज लाइक आई कांट लिव इन दोज मेनी मीन्स, बट इट फील्स लाइक इंसल्टिंग टू टेक दैट बिग अ कट यार. एंड देन दे सेड, कट क्या बोल रहे हो यार, ये लो, विल मैचिंग योर सैलरी और ये लो व्हाटएवर 1.5 करोड़ के ESOPs. और वो तो मुझे पता नहीं था हाउ टू वैल्यू. तो बट आई जस्ट केम बैक एंड टोल्ड दिस, भाई बॉस, दिस इज द थिंग, आई एम मूविंग. Sid moved 2 months later. Dabas moved 3 months later. Only
to Myntra.
To Myntra. By the time Dabas moved, I had left. So काफी गाली पड़ी.
You were there for a very short while.
Yeah, I was there for 6 months or so. So that friendships blossomed along the way, but nothing grew as individuals, as a pair, as the co-founding stint. Right? I mean, there are very few decisions that are as high impact in life as choosing a co-founder. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky.
I remember you had demands. Like one person will do supply, one person will do demand.
काफी simple था. वो explain करने के लिए. I'll do demand. Sid will do supply. Caddy will do technology. And initially there is enough to do.
Yeah.
And in some ways, if you have two people who have the chemistry and are complementary in styles, we aren't complementary in our CV, right? They look similar, same literally. Yeah. That you won't be able to tell one versus the other, but in our styles we are. So, Sid likes to use the, it's a ladder kind of, style. Like when we both problem solve and we are in sync, we build
on top of
amazingly, well.
Like he's an incredibly intelligent human being. Most people who come through the kind of schools that you and him do are intelligent on the usual metrics, but I think he's an extremely emotionally intelligent human being. Extraordinarily so, and he articulates it in a. And he's very disarming that way. Like he's a very good-looking guy. Yeah. He has a beautiful
That's
smile.
Why he was popular on campus, by the way.
I absolutely can imagine why. Yeah. Like he's extremely good-looking, very nice, smiling.
Dude, this turned into a bromance thing, man.
No, I'll tell you what I remember about Sid specifically. I remember Sakshi was getting into the angel investing game. Okay. And I did not have any money at that time. So I told her, you should get into something. And for Sakshi, the biggest draw was, I'm not a part of this startup thing, but my sister and Shantanu seem to be enjoying it a lot. So FOMO to hai mere ko. Lekin naukri chhodni nahi hai because I love doing what I do. So let me get involved in the easiest way to do it, which is to put money in that. I said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I said, she's like, where do I start? I said, let's start with like the known places. Like we shouldn't go into. Let's see where there are companies where. So that's I think the way which the Treebo investment happened.
Yeah.
And
thank you for that.
Opportunity was amazing. Opportunity was amazing, and then the press release came out, which I think did not have a name on it.
I remember that.
And I remember her feeling extremely disappointed. She's like, my name is not on it. I said, and I understood immediately why it was not. I said, they've put founders, and I think they put mainly founders on this.
A select set, yeah, probably.
And you're not a founder, so it doesn't add to the press release in any way. You're also not in the hospitality section, so I don't think it's personal. I just think that it did not add to the press release in any way. So she's like, I said, like, if you feel strongly about it, you should tell straight.
Yeah.
So she was, I think, talking to him at that time. And she's very, very conflict averse. She said, no matter whatever. I said, of all the people in the world, if there is one person who will absolutely welcome this feedback, and even if it is not feedback that he will agree with, but welcome it nonetheless, it is said. Just tell him that you felt bad. Just tell him you felt bad. Don't tell him to change anything. Don't tell him anything. Just tell him you felt bad. So she's like, okay. So she kind of drafted messages and she shared with me multiple times. Ye bhejo kya? And then I kind of like redlined it. I was like, yaar, tu bhej yaar. Jo bhejna tu bhej. Then she sent it. And you will not believe, just like a month or so back, she was talking to Surbhi Chaturvedi, who's her colleague, who's very close friend with Palak, which we found much later on. And they were talking about shit, and Sakshi said, I must show you one thing about this guy. And these are very these are very intelligent women, like ambitious women who get together. And when they talk about men, in this context, it is usually with disdain, right? But in this case, it was reverence. And she actually read out his message, which he responded back to her. And I must start by telling you how very deeply sorry I am, not only for doing this, but for not even realizing that it was an issue after you shared with me. It took me a day or two to fully realize the impact of this. And he kind of goes on to explain, then talks about what he's going to correct. Yeah. And Sakshi writes it, and then Surbhi was like, this is some incredible guy. And I can imagine his thoughtfulness in every interaction.
There's a reason why I'm saying, I've been very fortunate on that count, because the learning has not just been professional, right? It's been on all walks.
Yeah. You assume a lot of things that are unsaid are understood.
Yeah.
They're not. And sometimes some things are way too important to be left unsaid, especially in special relationships that are that you want to be kind of investing in for the long term, which are important to you. No, I completely agree. But tell me about and we speak about home a lot, right? But Navneet is an extremely accomplished partner at a top consulting firm and just doing so well. I remember once you had told me and Sakshi that one of the things that you want to do is to make sure that you play as active a role in her success as you possibly can, which might involve inviting her teams over for poker or dinner and kind of hosting them so that she's able to have the conversations that over a drink that maybe and stay out of the way, but also be a part of it so that. But talk about Navneet's role in Treebo and in your life in general. You guys, she's a college sweetheart, so it goes back a long way. You have two college sweethearts, clearly.
Yeah, I didn't know. For the other one we just discussed, I didn't know whether journey would go that way. But with this one, with Navneet, I knew right away. So still a teenager. So Sid is 2006 and 2007. Navneet is 2008. Navneet and Sid know each other, by the way, far before, because they work for the same college magazine.
Oh, so they worked in college together.
Yeah.
Okay. She was junior to you.
Yeah, one junior to me. So what I knew, I think she was like a basketball captain, serious athlete. I'm mostly kind of, I'm not naturally talented. So anytime I see some genius, like I'm really drawn to that person, particularly in the sporting world, right? So when I know
she's that good, is it?
She's quite good. Yeah. So like the natural athlete, you add on top of that, insane amount of hard work to get where she wants. The whole package, man. Computer science, basketball captain, the first person to lead, Roorkee to the basketball gold and eventually the women's GC. So just I of course got lucky there as well. And we've also matured along the way, but we knew very clearly that we'll kind of spend the life together.
So early?
Yeah, quite early on. At least I told her that. I think what I've been able to do in life, coming from the background that I have come, is largely because of that. I've seriously married up. There is no way. My family just lost it when I told them that I'm starting up. They lost it. They didn't speak to me for a bit.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You never told me this.
No, it was. I didn't tell them while I was thinking about the decision. I told them on the day I put in the papers. 30th Jan or 31st Jan, 2015. Mom was stunned.
You नौकरी छोड़ रहा है?
Yeah, why? You've done all the hard work. तेरा नौकरी था श्लम्बरजे में, IIT में तू वहाँ नहीं गया, फिर तू IIM अहमदाबाद चला गया, वहाँ से तू McKinsey तूने ही बताया कि अच्छी कंपनी है, they तो didn't know how to spell it also, right? अच्छा कंपनी है, वहाँ पे भी तूने बताया तू अच्छा कर रहा है, you're getting all these projects, you went to London, etc. And then तू Myntra, whatever, vice president of strategy. We haven't heard of the company, but अच्छा लग रहा है from what you said, salary. I couldn't tell them. I was a little bit embarrassed on how much I was earning, but they knew it was like a massive number, right? तो मतलब साल की सैलरी उनकी वेल्थ के बराबर टाइप्स होने की सिचुएशन थी. तो they were like stunned. The only reason why I can do something like that with confidence is because I know I have Navneet, who's assured me that I can go
wild,
swing. I can just go. So it's hard to underscore that here. That's literally, it's everything in a way. Why I'm here is largely because of her. So and she has this big belief that ये तो कुछ करेगा, and she said very rationally, say I'm doing it because I can see that I'm investing in you. तू कुछ करने वाला है इसलिए I'm kind of supporting this. So in a way, what if I can do something, I can give back in any way.
Yeah.
I am trying to give back to the ecosystem. Least I can do is give back to the person who's enabled all of this, right?
Yeah. It's important, and to do it without thinking. Like for even in my case, for example, Sakshi's, one is to do it. The other is to do it with a nonchalance that it doesn't matter. That is what, I don't know whether that was how it was with Navneet and you, but with Sakshi and me, it was like, of course. It's a given. Yeah, I'll take care of the rent. Yeah, sure.
That's not even the conversation. That to understood hai. Kya wo to hoga hi hoga. I think conversation she is very clear about what her ask is. She's like, obviously that's not, the finances are not the problem. You have to be available for us, for families, for kids. She'll never ask for herself. But that's, I want to be available for that.
Yeah.
And for a long time, she was, playing second fiddle in that. And indeed, one of my dreams is to see her at wherever she wants to go. If it's at the helm of the global consulting firm that, she works at, then so be it.
Yeah.
If she chooses to do something else. She did take a break. Actually worked at a startup.
And to CureFit,
yeah. Yeah, was at CureFit for a bit. I totally was supportive of that. I think she has insane. She certainly is way smarter than me, right? More driven, meticulous. Is able to juggle multiple priorities. We have 2 kids. She's a partner, in the consumer internet, or actually broadly now more the tech space, right? She's working with founders like you and me who can be fairly demanding clients. It's not the oil and gas client I was serving. जहाँ पे आराम से 9 से 6 करके आ गया मैं.
Correct. And intellectual arbitrage also limited.
No arbitrage यार. No arbitrage. Trust हो सकता है क्या? नहीं हो सकता है. These are people who have, unicorns, decacorns, etc. have an amazing team that's been hired from the same background.
Correct.
वो जो IQ, RQ, CQ बोलते थे, all arbitrage is gone. You have to add serious value on capability quotient, otherwise you have no right to exist.
Correct.
She's doing all of that. So, again, to use her own framework, she deserves to, I should be enabling her because she deserves to go places.
Correct.
So it's actually a very straightforward thing for me. And sometimes, things are easy for me. So for me to host her team is easier.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. It feels like play.
No, but to do it. To actively think about it, to do it that way, to kind of talk about it. I think there's a flywheel of intent that gets created, which then kind of helps. I think, and if it goes both ways.
Yeah. Giving flywheels are hard to start, but if they do, I do agree that, you know, they are the exact opposite of the receiving flywheels, right? In a way, when you're trying to demand and be entitled. Here you give whatever you can, and it makes it spin faster. Absolutely.
How was she when you were when you were in that phase where the 2018-2019 phase? Like, I'm sure it would have stretched, but was her strength one of the reasons why you kind of went into fitness? And
I was quite ashamed of, you know, the person I was becoming at that point in time, so I would hide it from her a lot more.
Was it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know,
while living in the same house.
Yeah. I mean, I won't say it, but I know I'm like, you know, screwing this up completely. So I think she powered through that phase. But it came at a serious cost to the relationship and could have gone awfully wrong in a way if, you know, we hadn't pulled back things. So you spoke about communication, and when that breaks down, things start to go wrong. Yeah. In co-founders, in organizations, with your spouse. Yeah, I can't, you know, that's the earliest investment. Maybe I was born to be a VC. That's the earliest investment I made early on, emotionally. I committed very early. And it's been, this year will be the 18th year of knowing her, right? Wow. So.
And dating her as well?
Yeah. I mean, यार उस टाइम ना बड़ी definition बड़ी clear नहीं थी कि dating कर रहे हैं या क्या कर रहे हैं. We go out, we go to the sports field, and after that we go out for a meal. Yeah. My sense is in the 2003-2004 era that could be considered dating.
I think it's dating when you don't do it with anyone else.
वो तो clear था. One trick pony on both sides though. Only person we've ever dated.
Wow. That's amazing. They say that.
I bet you have a very different story on that one.
Yeah, I do. I mean, for me, I'm actually, I think whether it's raised in the US, parents who have lived outside a lot. For me, like, dating became a very normal thing moment I hit like 9th standard, 10th standard. I knew that, like, I would identify as single. You know, like, before I ever dated anyone, like, I had told myself.
Because I'm available now.
I'm single, which means now I'm ready to date. Like, you know, so, and we have, this was like, we all used to watch Friends a lot. Like, in school, like, our school kids and all of us would watch Friends a lot. So, I don't know for good or bad, that shaped a lot of our social, in the romantic world, our social behaviors and expectations. Watching Friends. Have you watched the show?
Sadly, yes.
So for me, like, it was a very influential show, and for a lot of our friends, so dating became very normal. And also there was this thing that the first one never works out. So you can always experiment with the first. Then you experiment, like, okay, fine, this was like good but not great. So then you look for the next. And I think that's an interesting path to take as well, because then there's a very interesting way to think about it, because I think it's a choice. This has to work, then you will make it work. But if you're saying, no, I'm going to keep experimenting till I get better and better, and you will. You progressively date better and better, always. Because
better means better fit.
Better for you. You're happier because it ticks more boxes in your life at that stage.
Yeah.
And then you realize, fuck, now if it's gotten better till now, it can get better, and then there is this risk of serially dating till a stage where suddenly life has passed you by. So that's the.
So maybe it's one or nearly an infinite.
No, I think India, because of the family construct, figure out at 27, 28 to 30, 32.
करना पड़ता है.
Now, like, the family will force you into like choosing quickly. Yeah. I always believe that the first one never works. Like, you're a very exceptional case, and I have not seen that a lot.
No, उससे पहले maybe I would have felt कि you know, I want to give this a go, but the construct, I was in an all-boys school. क्या ही करते हैं? मतलब, Convent of Jesus and Mary is going to come only for like the
fete or whatever.
No, I was a military school, so it's going to come for the term and ball. That's all. and that's your window into the fairer gender. No,
I cannot imagine.
no, it's pretty crazy, right? It's our parties were like boy fests, basically dancing to Coco Bongo and whatnot. It's ridiculous. Some of these guys are at pretty high-ranging positions in the army today. If I have some, videos and photos, it will serve as pretty good blackmail material. So, but in this case, I think in my and Navneet's case, I think we said, okay, the foundation exists and now we're going to commit. So we'll evolve together. I know there's a lot more unknowns to be figured out. तो साथ में कर लेते हैं.
Did you guys articulate that to each other earlier?
इतना नहीं पता होता यार. Like,
But subconsciously?
It's not that deliberate. I just felt it in my bones कि ये सही है. And for a while I wooed her and she didn't say yes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. We'd go out.
For marriage or like for dating? Or both?
Yeah. For me, it was always clear. When she says yes, we are committing to this for life. So she did take, a year and a half.
In college?
In college, yeah. So she was pretty kind of worried about what she was getting into. She was from an all-girls school in Amritsar. So, it's worked out okay.
That's the thing. I always see this with people who have A-type spouses, right? Ambitious, and I think for me also, one of the fundamental driving factors for a lot of good decisions in my life early on was the innate need to impress Sakshi.
Yeah, you told me.
Even after we started dating or when we were married or after we got married, कि उसको लगता था यार मेरे को PPO था Nokia से. मैं तो बहुत खुश था. I just met my internship boss just last week for lunch. And he's helping us out. Like he's now CEO of this.
I love this about you. How you cultivate and nurture relationships over a long period of time.
2 months. Yeah, he was my boss for 2 months. At that time, I was 23. He was 33. I now think, he was so young at that time. But in my mind, he was so old. Yeah. He was so senior and all that. Karan Abhishek Singh. He's now the CEO of Viacom 18, the Hindi news division.
Okay.
So we are his clients. So I'm like, very cool. He's like, no, let me come. He's hardcore. Anyways, I was like, yeah. Then towards the end of the second year, I realized that Sakshi, we're not dating at that time. So Sakshi finds consulting impressive for some reason. Because his sister is there or for whatever. I'm like, fuck yeah.
But actually in that vintage, tha.
No, of course.
There were 5 jobs were available, right?
Lucknow में तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं.
Lucknow में McKinsey BCG जा रहा है, बेन जा भी नहीं रहा है. So it's just very few. Naturally by self-selection, it was an impressive kind of.
No, I
that's
did
where
it
good
to
talent
impress. I did it to impress her. I'm like, fuck her. She's shortlist आ गई for some reasons. I realized later on, Sohail Samir had played a role in saying, this guy seems to have something spiky. Because I was not getting shortlisted, but he pushed me in. And then I prepared. I'm like, sahi hai. Then I went to McKinsey. Like doing well at McKinsey seems to impress her because she kind of finds that valuable, even though she hated it at BCG. Then I'm like, I'll do that. Then at some point after we got married or around the time, she's like, you're becoming like this boring McKinsey person who talks in 3 bullet points. And I was like, fuck, this is not impressing her anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what is it going to impress you? So she was starting up. She's like, starting up, you should be an entrepreneur. Because I was like, fuck, she finds this impressive. So that's when I started talking to her, let me kind of get, tutored by either you or with Mukesh at Flipkart and so on, and then we ended up starting up on my own. But yeah, I think if you're able to, if you have a very high capable partner, to impress that person is an unlock for you only.
100%. In fact, more broadly, I feel strongly about this. Just build good addictions in life. You are going to get addicted. Just make sure they're the right things. In this case, having the need to impress your spouse, well, fine. It's a fuel that drives you, by all means.
It's leading to good outcomes, right?
Yeah.
It's leading to good outcomes. How about parenthood? Talk about parenthood a little bit. You have Kabir, who's like, I think a 60-year-old guy in an 8-year-old body. Just intellectually, wisdom-wise, I see his videos, I met him now. He's an adorable young man. And Noor, who's probably the world's smallest
Bowman Halika Gunda. Yeah.
Manchester United fan. Yeah. But are they very different in their personalities?
Yeah, it's a good A/B test to kind of go through. It's been good, yeah. We moved to Bangalore, lock, stock and barrel, from McKinsey to Myntra. We changed a lot of things when Kabir was 3 months old. So, he's used to living in chaos. And for a long time, I wasn't that available, right? So kind of missed that early years. And once I figured out, man, I'm doing this all wrong around 2018, 2019, it was already like 4 or 5. So then we've developed like a, great relationship together. We do things together. We are huge United fans, right? That was destined to be, like he had no other option. But he's far kind of, gone on a path of his own where some of his abilities are just far beyond, mine and what I thought my kid would be. Yeah. Right? He reads incessantly and he'll read anything. We were at Dabas's house, in December, and he had a bunch of sports autobiographies and he read quite a few essays. So दिन में वो 1-2 किताबें पढ़ लेता है.
That's crazy.
Right.
He's an 8-year-old.
हाँ, तो उसने 250 किताबें पढ़ रहा था वो last year. कुछ पतली, कुछ Enid Blyton, कुछ Roald Dahl, but some Alex Ferguson's book, etc. So he picked up Rafa, वो पढ़ ली, right? Andrea Pirlo की I think therefore I play, वो पढ़ ली. And then he came to me saying, इसमें F word लिखा हुआ है. I'm not supposed to read this. Then why are you? Okay, I'll just ignore it. And read it. Then he was reading Chris Gale's thing, like ये नहीं यार. It was called the Six Machine. ये नहीं पढ़ेगा तू. I found him reading that. But generally, Navneet's philosophy is if he can understand it, he can read it. So, if he's reading Harry Potter at 6, it's fine.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about the fact that you and Navneet, as a matter of circumstance, not by choice, but educated him on the fact that women get periods very early on in his life, that he had the maturity to absorb it and kind of take it very normally.
I think kids are capable of like a lot more than we give credit to, right? Don't need to talk to them in kid language. They can understand as long as, you're doing it with a genuine intent to explain. You don't need to actually be so cagey around them. At least, Navneet's taught me that. So, sure, you need to, mom's in the bathroom, you need to, take a pad and go to her. Give it.
Wow.
What's the big deal?
But you come from a boys' school, conservative family.
Yeah.
For you, that transition would have been kind of...
Yeah, even for her, it's not the same. I'm not sure her parents would have the same model or I would have the same. Yeah. My parents would have the same model. But she is so clear and I just find it's easy to be a co-parent with her because she is quite clear. She reads a lot. She has her own models around this. So, I think it's the right thing.
Of course.
Right? Kabir will be a lot more respectful of the girls. They are in 3rd grade. In 4th or 5th grade, or maybe it's already starting, girls will start to face his friends and will start to face, situations where, there are mishaps, like they say, in school, right? Where, suddenly first time you would menstruate. So, yeah, he needs to be a lot more empathetic towards a situation like this and not get, oh, this is so crazy, or worse, make fun of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have a the only rule we have is screen time, on-screen time, otherwise we don't have that. And it's easy with him because we give him 20 minutes of screen time, but he collects all of it and he says, I'll use it to watch the United game on the weekend. It's kind of easy. Noor's very different. She's of course much younger, but she's a free soul.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm scared for the world. Once she gets fully unleashed. Naturally, she's much more, I think she's a lot more physically, she's like Navneet, like natural at stuff.
Yeah.
It's early days, and Kabir is a lot more like me. Like he plays on the football field with his mind a lot more than he plays with his body.
Yeah.
So, but it's a good test, an experiment to run all the time. It's been fun. Second time, I've been a lot more available. It helped that it was during COVID, I was stepping back, from Treebo. I didn't have like the daily or the weekly cadence at work. So I was a lot more available. I tried to be the primary caregiver. Navneet went back early this time. She had to play a people function role at her firm.
I remember every time you and I had to talk, you were like, no,
yeah,
I have to put Noor to sleep or
I've tried to do that. I'll never be able to play the same role that the mother would, but I've tried hard, to do that.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I think that's the thing, right? About you and Navneet. Like you guys obviously are blessed with tremendous genes to kind of pass it on to. And
that's so generous, man.
No, I think you guys should have your own Manchester United squad because. Like
Elon Musk wala just throw the DNA out there into the world.
The world becomes a better place. There are the two logics. Why do you want to bring the more people into this world and etc. etc. I just feel that more people who have a higher chance of being good contributors to society, which Kabir and Noor will very likely be given the parentage and the genes they have. No, but I think it's a given. Unless something very drastically like unpredictable happens, I think it's 99.9% a given that they'll be fabulous members of society. Contribute. They could do whatever they want to do. Like I'm sure you and Navneet will let them be artists or lawyers or consultants, whatever they want to do.
बिल्कुल ही कोई talent नहीं लग रहा उस तरफ. Some of the art teacher likes him because works hard, but I don't think there is anything. He's like scientist बनना है, but in a place that plays football. So it's zeroed in on Cambridge. कहते Cambridge United team है और वहाँ पे हॉकिंग वगैरह पड़े हुए हैं, तो that seems like the right place to go. West Coast में फुटबॉल नहीं होगा, अगर टेक होगा, साइंस होगा, बट फुटबॉल नहीं होगा.
यार बढ़िया यार, very cool, very cool. I think this is I think from a distance when I see when I see her video, like when you send it on the group, I'm like, wow, she's just grown so quickly. I remember her as a small
blob.
When we did the BSc women discussion, the Bombay discussion, is when she was like almost like maybe a month.
Yeah, I had her on the Zoom call. I remember.
Yeah, she was there. She was there.
It's flown by, and I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to be there this time. Like for most people, second startups, second kid is a lot more deliberate, a lot more thought through. We want to have this or not? How do we want to do it? So there's a lot more clarity around this, and we are privileged that it happened. I was in the OT when it happened, and the doctor asked me, "So Rahul, boy or girl?" I'm like, I just want a healthy kid, and all the nurses like, yeah, and doctors like, "Hut, diplomatic answer," and then then Noor's there. It's like, it's a girl. I'm like high-fiving everyone. Like, Bugger, right now you just said you don't care.
But you're like, no, healthy kid, and then girl is a huge
I really wanted. I mean, it's good to have experienced both. We got lucky.
No, absolutely, it's amazing. I'm keenly looking forward to meeting them next week.
Thank you, sir.
But on that note, Rahul, this has been an absolutely riveting conversation. Like all conversations are with you, I think it flowed into a lot of areas which obviously will make me think at night and over the next few days. But
what I'm not clear about is why the audience might want to listen to this about the parenthood and how to teach your kids about menstruation early on.
No, I think that'll be I'm sure the team will give feedback that will be amongst the most powerful small clips that we will create. So in my mind, from this conversation, I have at least 30 content that will become very, very valuable. But even for people who watched the whole episode, what we did was we went from a very very recent professional career move to building a company, to talking about your co-founder the way you did, and then to family, because it goes from understanding what you're doing to who you are. And that's why people will, if we would have started with the parenthood thing, I think viewers would have struggled to kind of relate. But because we kind of did it the other way, thank you so much for taking, and I have a feeling that you are so full of wisdom that this should be the first of many episodes that we do. I would like to go deeper on certain topics with you, especially around founders, especially around we didn't talk about, for example, your 2-3 months at NDA after being All India rank 1 in the NDA exams,
or OGQ
or athletics
sport,
or sport. There are so many topics that we have not spoken about at all today. We need another 3.5 hours. But this has been absolutely riveting.
Insane. It just didn't feel like, I think the cameras vanished after first 5-10 minutes.
It always does. It always is a conversation. It's beautiful because there's it's the office is now like kind of on low energy. We keep the lights off, and then it becomes very.
Thanks, man. This has been
Pleasure.
such a great experience for me. It just felt like any other conversation you and I have over beer and momos. Next time we could do that.
We should do that. The team was kind of conscious about your health situation. What will you like? So I said we should do basic things, but next time we should get beer and momos.
Amazing, bro.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Oh, we have something?
अरे यार
ये बड़ी.
अच्छा, I'm running out of this. Thank you so much. यही वाला है मेरे पास. यार, so nice of you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you.
भाई.
Thank you.
कभी खरीदने देते ही नहीं हो, ऐसे ही पहुंच जाता है मेरे पास.
Always.